The main character of this manhwa is a movie star who has collected many worthy awards thanks to her honest work. The girl's name is Solina, and she has not only acting talent, but also an insane beauty that everyone admired. One day, something happened to her. She woke up with cold and pain all over her body. It seemed strange to her, because it was summer outside. Rising on her hands, she found herself in the mountains of the winter forest. Sol Lin was very confused and wondered how this could have happened to her, but she remembered what had happened to her before she was here. The actress was on the set, which took place on the edge of a cliff. Despite all the danger of the activity, she was confident in her abilities. But during the work, one of the fasteners broke, and the girl flew down from the cliff directly into the ocean, and she remembered it well, but she could not understand how she ended up in this forest. Sol was sitting in thought. It was very cold, and she was freezing. Suddenly, quite loud sounds were heard nearby. A monster was running at her, screaming, clearly showing its anger and danger. She could not even hope for salvation, but suddenly the girl saw something cut through the monster's neck. A man stood in front of the heroine and held a sword in his hands, with which he killed the monster. The girl was saved. What a relief. The man came closer to her and spoke in an incomprehensible language, but she did not understand it at all. Comparing some facts in her head, Sol assumed that she had found herself in another world, because she could not find another explanation for herself. Unexpectedly, the savior stretched out his hand to her. After a little thought, she stretched out her own in return. At the same moment, a thin, shiny bracelet appeared on her hand. The girl was indignant, and when the man said out loud that this thing was working properly, she was also confused because she began to understand what he was saying. During a short dialogue, the actress concluded that since she was in another world, then perhaps this was a special device for translation. Also, she noticed that the interlocutor reacted calmly when she mentioned that she came here from another world. Apparently, all this is the norm for him. Therefore, she directly asked how many people came here, to which the stranger replied with his consent and added that he usually found corpses and bones here, and that it was the first time he saw someone alive. Despite the fact that this man was quite frightening in his cold-bloodedness, the girl decided to stick with him until she was safe. So she turned on her charm and asked if he was a knight who fought monsters. The man smiled, but this smile made it even scarier. Sol noted that he would be perfect for the role of the cold-blooded Duke of the North from a romantic fantasy. Finally, the stranger introduced himself. His name was Calcion of Linbird, the ruler of Lenbird and the Duke of the server part of the kingdom of Eklin. The girl stretched out her hand and introduced herself too, but by a different name that she had used abroad, deciding that it would be better that way, the name of Sol Selene. Calcion thought that there was something wrong with Sol's hand and asked, but she said that it was only a greeting and thought in her mind that this was probably a different etiquette. But the Duke took her hand in his and kissed the back of his hand. Without taking his eyes off her hand, he greeted the stranger in her new lands. The girl was embarrassed because this happened to her only on the set or at award ceremonies. The man noticed that Sol looked like a commoner and acted like a lady, but she explained to him that in her world people are not divided into commoners and aristocrats. He hoped that she was of noble birth because then she would be of some use, although it all depended on her skills. Then Sol asked what if she was not of the nobility and could not be useful. Then Calcion grabbed her chin lightly and replied that in that case she would have to find a use. At the same time, he added that it would be if she wanted to leave this mountain alive. What she heard became a motivation for the girl, so she assured him that she would sacrifice everything and become what she needed. The Duke said that if she wanted to live on his land, she had to give something useful to the development of Lenbird. Sol offered to contribute to the development of culture and art, because where she came from, she was a very famous actress, and she has a particularly good acting skills. Then she was asked to demonstrate her skills right here and now. Confused, she wondered who she should play. After a little thought, the man chose the role of the villain. The actress realized that she would have to improvise, but she had to try because it was better than dying. Then she moved towards him with a confident step, starting her acting. Grabbing him by the hair on the back of his head, she lifted his head up and, looking into his eyes, began to speak as befits a villain. She spoke so confidently that the man was even a little confused, but he listened attentively and sometimes even answered. In the end, the girl got a little nervous and wondered if she had gone too far. After a couple of moments, our appraiser finally counted this game and said that he wanted to hire an actress for the role. He said that she would go out into high society and pretend to be his mistress, and in addition would receive death threats. The girl was shocked by such a statement, but at the same time she understood that if she refused, he would not take her with him. Then she wondered what she would get in return, and the Duke offered her life. The heroine argued that there is little motivation for such work, and if he is ready to leave it to her, then this means that no one can play as well as she does. And this means that they are in the same position, because living in high society, they will keep secrets, and then the Duke must give something in return so that the actress is faithful to him. Then Calcion promised that the girl would live in the castle, as well as be provided with money and a luxurious life, and would also give her hope that she would be able to return to her world. He said that there was a way that he was not sure of, and that it was a dangerous land of monsters, and that he would personally take her there when he was finished, but he could not guarantee that she would be able to return. Saul agreed that it would be a great motivation for her, and she would do the best she could. Our heroes arrived at the castle to discuss the plan. All this time the Duke carried his companion in his arms. They were met by their subordinates, a little surprised by what they saw. The ruler explained that he had found this girl in the forest and saved her from a monster attack, and was too late, because he had accompanied her. One of the subordinates offered to help the girl take off her raincoat, because it was probably heavy. But Calcion pushed Saul a little away from the man and refused in a defiant tone, although he spoke somehow uncertainly. Even then, in the forest, the actress said that they needed a clear plan, because a suddenly appeared mistress should have a backstory, to which the Duke added that unexpected details could cause problems. Then the girl offered a fairly simple explanation for others, that the Duke saved the beauty from monsters and fell in love with her at first sight. And so, sitting in the arms of the head of Lenbird in front of his subordinates, the girl coquettishly said that she would not mind help if the Duke carried her in his arms. She couldn't help but intervene as she saw his lordship agitated and stuttered. In the forest, they tried to rehearse his loving gaze so that everything looked believable, but under his gaze, Sewell felt not like a mistress, but a prey. Then she suggested that he smile, assuming that it was a matter of facial expression. But his smile exuded not love and tenderness, but a desire to kill his victim. This work was difficult for the man, and the girl said that it was necessary to create a suitable atmosphere. The actress suggested imagining that she had come to this forest on purpose to seduce the Duke, and since then, she has not stuck to him. Also, she explained that for a believable picture, he must not only agree with all her words, but also do and say something himself that will show his passion. After going through several versions of the remarks, the girl came up with a simple phrase for his lordship, with which they could fool everyone. They rehearsed for a very long time, because the Duke could not say that phrase, and his expression did not change. They were still standing at the gate, and everyone was waiting for an answer from the head, who was standing dead in his tracks. Then Sol reached for his ear and began to whisper indistinctly so that he could say his line faster, and the inept actor, in turn, kept collecting his thoughts. Finally, Calcion uttered his phrase, saying that he would carry his companion himself. As expected, the subordinates were surprised by what was happening. They go to the castle, where they are greeted by servants who inform them that the bath and dinner are ready, and the master has ordered the same to be prepared for his girlfriend. They go into the room to discuss the details of the plan. The Duke explains why Celine should become his beloved villain. It turns out that his intended bride has died, and she is rumored to be a villain, the misfortune that happened the night before the engagement at his own estate. The lady's death was considered suicide, but Calcion does not think so because the wounds were too deep, so he needs to conduct his own investigation, and for this, he needs someone who would succinctly fit into society. Then, behind the door, they inform that the bathtub is ready and ask if a servant can enter. Sol told the Duke that she might be spotted while changing her clothes, and would find her clothes strange, since she was from her world. The heroine came up with an idea, and she asks the man not to be surprised if she does something strange. She asks her colleague to speak, connecting her stomach so that his voice can be heard outside the door, and begins a performance with the participation of the audience. Then the servants outside the door hear the girl screaming that she does not want, and asks the Duke to order everyone to leave, and the servants for the Duke himself too, because she does not want anyone to touch him. At this point, a colleague plays along, saying that they do not need servants and asks everyone to leave. Sol was glad that they had done a great job, and the man showed where the bathtub was. In the bathroom, another idea came to her, and she asked the Duke to come to her. She throws her clothes into his hands and asks him to tear them. This way they will get rid of this problem. The man begins to pull at his clothes, but at that moment he listens, then grabs the girl, hugs her, and covers her mouth so that she is quiet, saying that they are being overheard by spies. Probably this happened often, so Calcion was not surprised. He stood and thought whether to kill the villains or spare them. Then the girl offered to use them in her favor and come up with a plausible situation to deceive everyone. The Duke admitted that he was not an actor and asked if they should really do something. Then she pushed him away, thinking that he was obscene. Then the actress said that she would do everything herself and the man would only have to clap his hands, but first it was better to tear his clothes. Suddenly she grabbed his hand and threw it right into the bathtub, after which she said that such a matter should be left to a professional, that is, to her. Her game consisted in the fact that she played a shameful scenario, portraying a pleasant pastime of lovers. From such a game, the Duke blushed. After that, the girl suggested that we go outside as soon as possible to see the reaction of the servants. The servant behind the door was shocked and believed what she had heard, which meant that everything had gone as it should. She walked over to the couple and said that she was taking Miss Selina to the bath and helping her get ready. The girl was cleaned up and dressed up, and in conversation she was told that such clothes had been preferred by the previous Duchess, and Celine wondered if it would be normal to use this dress to bring memories of Calcion's mother. The assistants wanted to show the lady to his lordship, but she did not wait and quickly went to the Duke to show her outfit. The man was not pleased with what he saw, but the servants said that they were only following orders, so he ordered this man to be brought. As soon as he could finish, Selene sat on his lap and began to act like a playful and jealous lover. They were interrupted by Lady Jeanette, who apologized for her orders and explained that, apart from the late Duchess's belongings, only the servants' clothes were kept in the palace. Celine thought that the Duke would not tolerate this in silence, but she was mistaken, because he was grateful to Jeanette for conscientiously maintaining order in the castle, and then asked to make them dinner and let them go. As she was leaving, Lady Jeanette looked over her shoulder at Celine and grinned unkindly. It seemed strange. Apparently, she didn't like her. At dinner, the Duke introduced his closest friend named Dion, who heads the Order of Chivalry, to the girl, and added that he was aware of the details of their plan and that he was not allowed to play in front of him. Dion expressed the opinion that even if the girl now has no feelings for the Duke, then it is not a fact that there will be no consequences, because his lordship is a desirable target for everyone. The girl replied that appearance and money are important, but she likes people who show tenderness and talk in a kind way, so they do not worry too much. By this, she wanted to convey that she would never fall in love with his lordship. In any case, if her acting skills are so good that Dion doubts the consistency of the plan, then everything goes as it should. When the heroes were left alone, the man warned that there would be spies anywhere and at any time, as in the bathroom, so the girl should be attentive even when she was alone. The actress replied that this is not a problem, because she has been looked at all her life, so the spy will not embarrass her. Then Calcion asked not to play when the two of them were together, but the girl refused, arguing that they needed to train even in private, so that the Duke would naturally pretend to be in love. Later, she asked who she should be afraid of, and it turned out that the man had one person with whom he was fed up. The next day, a lady stood in front of them and babbled that she was very worried about the Duke's broken heart, so she came to Lenberd, but these experiences were more like the fact that she decided to arrange a date at all costs. It was this man who had been discussed yesterday, and the Duke had warned that it was tiring to be near her. Despite the fact that Calcion's fiancé had been killed only a month ago, this lady had a stranglehold on this man, which meant that she either did not believe in this death or was the murderer, so Celine decided to be more careful with her. This girl's name is Fional. She always tries to seem cute and talks about herself in the third person, and she also sticks to the Duke like a bath leaf. Selena decided to save the situation, so she grabbed the man by the arm and began to lead him away, and Fionel ran after them and shouted something. She eventually caught up with them and started babbling to the Duke about how tired she was during the trip and wanted him to take her hand. But the girl was severely denied this pleasure. She was avoided as best they could, but she did not see it. So she herself hugged his arm, thus trying to move Selene aside. But our actress is not from a timid order. She accepted the challenge and attacked with Fionel's method. Hugging someone else's hand, she began to talk like a child about how she was tired of standing and hungry. Fionel pretended to fall and tried to grab hold of the Duke, but he simply withdrew his hand and ordered a chamber to be prepared for the lady. So our heroes were finally able to leave, and the guest behind them was indignant and angry because her plan failed. They sat at the table and talked about how Lady Fionel was strange and that Sewell had yet to meet influential people in various fields. And the girl thought that until they found the unknown criminal, she should try not to get hurt herself and not die. She stopped her meal, pretending that she had lost her appetite. After watching the man for a while, how he is, the girl asked him to try his steak because it looks more appetizing. A plate was moved to her, then she asked to cut this steak and use her device. Calzone cut a steak for her, but the girl could not eat with her own hands, so she asked to feed her. The man understood that spies could follow them at any time, so he fulfilled this request. The girl showed all her contentment, she even regained her appetite, and she asked to bring them desserts. And the man, meanwhile, could not overcome himself and start using the device that he fed Selene. For some reason, it embarrassed him. Thus, he hurriedly left the room, leaving the girl alone and did not even think that this act did not look very pretty. The heroine figured out how to teach him how to behave on dates, so she asked the servant where the Duke had gone. Most likely he was in his office. The girl decided that since they were having an affair, then there must be actions, so after changing clothes, she was already standing at the Duke's window with flowers in her hands. He asked her to go inside. The man stretched out his hand to help, but the lady herself jumped on the window and easily coped with this task. Calzone accepted the flowers, and Selena explained that she had come to create a situation that would put romance in his heart. She also said that he could not throw her out of the door because otherwise everything would change in a strange direction and rumors might spread. Therefore, while the Duke was doing his work, the girl sat quietly on the sofa and read. The heroine did not remember how she fell asleep, but she woke up in the same office on the same sofa and covered with someone else's clothes. It seemed cute to her. The girl decided to go to the training ground and stretch her body, and at the same time ask Calzone to teach the local martial arts. She met the servant and asked where the Duke could be and was told that he had gone to the training grounds. Selene, noticing the servant's disdainful look, decided to play the role of the villainess and, with a certain expression on her face, asked where the playground was. She was so angry at the shamelessness of the maid that she did not specify the location of the playground and got lost in the garden. Lady Fionel suddenly climbed out from behind the bushes, thereby frightening the girl. Perhaps she was also looking for Calzone. They had an altercation, during which Fionel was angry and screaming, and Selena was joking and laughing at her. Then Fionel threatened the girl that if she continued to behave like this, she would die. She said that someone rubbing next to the Duke had already died, hinting that the same fate awaited her. The heroine understood that she was standing unarmed in the very center of the labyrinth garden, and in front of her was a murder suspect, and that if something went wrong, she could really die. Also, she understood that there was a possibility that the lady could not be here alone, but with accomplices. Then Selene is called out by the voice of the Duke, who appeared just in time. She ran into his arms and was glad to be saved because she was very frightened. The man asked Fionel what was going on here, but she couldn't answer. In her arms, the girl felt the smell of his perfume, which calmed her, and she decided that it was time to come to her senses and start playing. She spoke again in that childishly sweet tone and complained that the lady had threatened to kill her if she clung to him. Meanwhile, the lady also pressed herself on the other side and began to babble something. This concert was bleeding from her ears. The actress, deciding to move on to the final chord, said that she was cold and tired and asked to be held. The Duke, of course, played along, took the girl in his arms and ordered that Fionel be escorted to her chambers because she was also tired. In the room, the girl has already told in more detail how she received a death threat. and she assumed that if Fionel was really a murderer, then it would be difficult for her to do it herself, and she would probably hire someone for such a job. Sol was then really very afraid that she could die, and the man said that she did a great job. She was about to go to bed when she stopped, and reasoned that since she had made a lot of noise, they would probably have to sleep together. So they both froze due to the sudden pressure, but they were saved by the servants who came to prepare them for sleep. In the bathroom, Celine was offered a transparent pajama that revealed all the charms of her body and was told that it was the best battlesuit to captivate his lordship. But the girl was just going to go to bed, so she asked to give her regular pajamas. The maid said that they were trying so hard to prepare for the night because it was the first time that His Grace had brought his beloved to the estate, so this could be a great opportunity for the Duchy of Lenberg to have an heir. After all, Sol managed to win back normal clothes and come to the bedroom. But the Duke met her in a very romantic setting. He explained that the servants had told him to do so as a sign of respect for the lady. Luckily for our heroes, they both intended to just sleep without any subtexts. The girl could not fall asleep and did not let the man sleep. At first, she wanted to lie down on the left side of the bed because she has a habit of turning over on her left side in her sleep. Then she needed more pillows. She said that she could not fall asleep because she was worried, since it was the first time she shared a bed with a man. When he asked again, showing his surprise, he realized that it was an unintentional rude remark, so he asked for forgiveness. The girl is used to people drawing erroneous conclusions because of her appearance, and then asked if she really looked like someone who would date everyone. The man explained that the fact is that she has a very high skill in the game, and despite the fact that all this is a game, he seems to be really fascinated by it. Then the girl replied that since she was trying with all her might to move forward, then he should not fall in love with her to the last. The hero agreed with her and decided that he would be careful, and they finally went to bed. In the morning, the girl woke up and saw that they were sleeping in an embrace with each other. Although it was pleasant to lie next to him, he still had to come up with something to avoid awkwardness. She decided to get out from under him before he woke up, and then she could pretend that nothing had happened. But the man only snorted, not hiding the fact that he had long been awake. The girl rolled over on her stomach and began to pretend to be asleep, but this of course did not work, although it was worth hoping. Her cheeks became a little rosy. This situation embarrassed her, which is why she wanted to sleep on the left. This morning they were supposed to meet a guest. Calcion said that she was from the family of the Marquises of Thiolin and not as simple as Fionel, so the actress should change her strategy. Sol was worried that they had gone out to meet the guest right at the gate because they greeted Fionel only at the front door and quickly left, and the Duke reassured her, saying that for most guests this was basic etiquette, just a special case with Fionel. But as they say, you remember the sun, here is a ray, and Lady Fionel instantly formed next to them to also meet the guest. Traditionally, she stuck to the man, and Sol saw how much he didn't like it, but she was amused. One of the clerks announced that Lady Rosalind had arrived, and the heroine saw a girl get out of the carriage. She went up to his lordship and said that she missed him, so she came without having time to warn him and asked for forgiveness. Fionel couldn't resist commenting on how cunning Rosaline was, since she had flown in as soon as she found out that she was going to leave. Then Lady Rosalind noticed her and began a dialogue about how everyone was surprised at her arrival here and that she had not attended the tea party without warning anyone. She pretended to be worried about Lady Fionel, but mostly she had come here to offer her condolences on behalf of the nobility of the capital. Rosaline thought they were done with the greeting and asked if they could come in, completely ignoring Celine as if she were an empty place. But our heroine, not at a loss, she snuggled up to Calcion and asked if it was time for them to have breakfast, thereby showing her existence. Rosaline asked the Duke who the lady was, but he immediately made it clear that she was the one he had chosen. Ignoring this attitude towards herself, Selena nevertheless introduced herself. The lady communicated without a respectful tone. She hears such a name for the first time, and asked what family she is from, to which the heroine believes that it is not so important because the main thing is personality. During the conversation, Rosaline mentioned an old case when Calcion said that if his wife was useful as a hunting dog, he would marry 100 times. And then she began to compare Sol to a dog and hinted that she needed to be trained, because we are talking about a dog of the Duchy of Lenberg. The actress did not fall for this cheap manipulation. She laughed and said that a dog like her does not need to be trained. Such a charm, on the contrary, should be protected from all kinds of difficulties and appreciated for its beauty. Rosaline then politely asked if she could share a meal with the lady, and the lady consented. Fionel was glad to be alone with the Duke at last, but he went away, saying that he would skip breakfast, wished her a good day, and that they would see each other at dinner. The girl again failed to interest him. She was so angry that flowers fell from her head. Selina noticed that the extra people had left and was not thinking about how this sarcastic genius would behave alone with her. But before she even had time to think of the idea, she was pushed from her leg into the stomach, which was quite painful. Pinning the girl against the wall, Rosalind asked how much she would have to pay to be the first to leave the Duke alone. Selina hastened to explain that she was not here for the money, but the lady said that whatever amount she was told, it would be a penny for her, so she repeated the question. The actress decided to answer in a mirror way. She grabbed someone else's hand and asked how much the lady could give her. Maybe the lady had prepared 100 such robes as hers. She was sure that this dress of the previous Duchess could be recognized as a national treasure. But Rosaline agreed even to such an amount. It indicated that she was really a powerful woman. The girl even thought about agreeing, but quickly brought herself to her senses and said that it would be a great loss to agree to this. She added that the thing she needed was very difficult to get and was not sure that Lady Rosaline could provide it, but she needed the Duke's heart. Then this lady mentioned the death of the Duke's would-be fiancée Ariel, and because of her greed, the girl may find herself in her place. Celine noticed that despite Rosalind calling her greedy, she herself was trying to stay close to the Duke, knowing the risk. It turns out that she believes that she will be safe next to him. And the reason for this is that there must be a good defense against the threat or the hope of becoming an influential person, or there is a murderer, which makes her the main suspect. In general, Saul repeated her position that she did not need money, but only the heart of the Duke. But Rosalind insisted that she did not need either money or status, because she could get all this with the snap of a finger. She added that if she wanted, she could become even more powerful than she was now, and Selina did not understand what her rival's intentions were. Rosalind turned around and began to leave, giving the girl a warning and adding that if you don't know how to value your life, then there is nothing you can do. It was time for dinner, and the four of them were sitting at a table that had a lot of food for so many people. The heroine tried to remember some special etiquette related to cutlery, but she did not succeed. She decided not to bother and took the bread with her hands, not avoiding a sharp comment. Rosalind mockingly asked what village her manners were from, and if she had picked up on the eating habits of the beasts in the northern mountains of Lenberd. The heroine held herself well in character and quipped in response that she did not know that animals eat bread. The opponent compared the girl to an animal, even mentioned the dog Fionel, who eats bread if you throw it on the floor. And Fionel corrected the girl, saying that it was a cat, and no matter how much she loved it, they ate separately. Lady Rosalind's speech consisted of almost undisguised sarcasm and a desire to humiliate. So Celine stuck a knife in the meat and said that if she were a beast, she would rather grab and bite Lady Rosalind's neck. Fionel was frightened by such a statement. It seemed that she was observing such behavior for the first time. But the heroine calmed her down, because she has nothing to worry about, because she has nothing to bite off, and she does not like to gnaw bones. Rosalind noted aloud that Celine was no different from that cat. She would smear the entire table while she ate. Further, she suggested that if Saul's behavior was similar to that of an animal, then the judgment was at the same level, and the heroine replied that this was the reason why the Duke chose her, and suggested that the lady try it too. The rival notified that it would be difficult for her to match the very wild taste of his lordship. Her upbringing and status did not allow it. At this point, Calzon intervened in the discussion, confirming that the status of the Theolon family was indeed noble. He said that the Lenberd family did not correspond to the Thiolans at all, and marriages between families were bowed out without unnecessary lyrics. He added that perhaps all this was for the best, because the status of Lady Rosalind was across his throat, and as a resident of the North, it is much more comfortable for him to be in nature, among animals, and sleep on the ground. But Lady Rosalind is not here for the sake of nitpicking, but to express condolences on behalf of the capital's nobility. So the servants come into the room and place huge piles of letters in front of the Duke. Rosaline said that these were letters from people who missed his lordship in the capital, and she also asked for an answer to them, as each was written with special courtesy. It was already late at night, and Calzon had been sitting over these letters for several hours. He heard a noise coming from behind the door. Then Selina enters the room in her pajamas, revealing her shoulders. She asks for understanding and forgiveness for the fact that her clothes are embarrassing, but these were the instructions of the maids, not her choice. The Duke said that everything was fine because the butlers also constantly advised him how to spend time with the lady. When the heroine sat down next to her, Calzon covered his face with paper and his ears turned red. After all, the girl's outfit embarrassed him. Then Selina decided to change the subject and asked how he managed to cope with Rosaline today, because he could not say a word against Fionel. The fact is that you can go against her officially because of the refusal to get engaged. He remembered this and was able to take revenge because he held a grudge. The girl suggested that it was not resentment but regret, but the man somehow reacted sharply. He said that the authority of this lady was his mother's assessment. Then Selina asked to share his own, and in his opinion Lady Rosaline was a dubious and annoying woman, with which Saul agreed. Then the heroine told the man how this lady threatened her and offered a lot of money. Even if she wants to get the Duke's wealth, it raises even more questions because she has no particular reason to do so. Then Selina suggested that it was all about his appearance, and the man even agreed, but perhaps it was all in a joking way. The heroes found a very important letter that looked luxurious and different from the others. It was from Crown Prince Layson. Calzon cannot ignore this family, as this prince is ambitious and wishes to take the throne, and he is also the most influential candidate among all the king's grandsons. The man does not want to cross paths with him, but all the families are invited to the celebration of the tercentenary of its foundation, and he does not even have the right to refuse. Selina encouraged him, because they would have to visit the capital anyway to study society, and he needed to improve his acting skills for a better investigation. Therefore, the girl sat on the man's lap and began to pretend that her mistress was asking her beloved to take her with her to the capital. After that, she said with a disappointed expression that his acting was disgusting. Then she explained that she was joking and creating a plausible legend because the master would be able to lie even under the threat of death. The girl had already gone to bed, but he was still sitting in a stupor and thinking that he was going crazy. In the morning, the servants reported that Lady Rosaline had invited Celine to a tea party. Since the girl had nothing to wear, she asked to tell her that she would not be able to attend. The servants also told her that even if the lady dressed in the rags used to wash the floor, she would not discuss her disrespect. The girl sent a letter to the Duke and said that she would come to the tea party, but only because she did not want to see how the servant would be punished. Selina again came up with a brilliant plan to surprise this bastard without wearing the old outfit. She came to tea in her pajamas, deciding that it was better than walking in rags. Rosaline thought that even rudeness should have a limit, and she would not mind if people came to her in old clothes. But the heroine reported that, unfortunately, her old outfit was torn by the master last night. Rosaline's expression was priceless in Sol's eyes. She was discouraged. The lady accused Selina of showing up in her pajamas on purpose to insult her, easily to tell a vulgar lie with obvious intentions. In the conversation, the heroine mentioned that she would go to the capital for the celebration as a partner of Mr. Duke. Rosaline got angry. She slapped her palms on the tabletop and began to raise her tone, but at that moment the Duke approached. The girl realized that from the outside it looked like she was mocking Celine, and decided that she needed to show as soon as possible that this girl had deliberately ruined the tea party. But then the heroine turned on the acting and began to shed tears. The man hugged the girl and reminded Lady Rosaline that this was not a place where she dominated society. The actress had to bring the game to the finale, so she said that she was cold and wanted to go inside and ask the man to carry her. The Duke declared that the tea party was over and carried Celine away, leaving the other girl behind. Rosaline was very angry at such a performance. No one knew what she was thinking at that moment. The heroine began to praise the man for his excellent work and play, as well as for the fact that he came very on time. The Duke sat the girl down on the sofa and told her to get ready, because he had called the tailors to make some dresses for her. He sat down in the seat next to her and warned her that the farther she went, the more nobles she would encounter along the way, and in that regard, she needed to learn how to overcome various obstacles. The girl's acting is good, but using only her as a weapon, there is a chance to meet with circumstances where she will not be enough. Therefore, he decided to give the heroine another weapon in the form of knowledge. They have 20 days before going to the capital, and during this time the girl must familiarize herself with manners, social skills, and basic culture, because she also needs to become an exemplary noblewoman. If a girl wants to enter high society, she must know how they communicate so that she can get along with them and fish out the necessary information. But initially, the reason for this decision was that the Duke did not want to see her companion ignored. Celine learned that Calcion had not taught the secrecy of social society either. Therefore, she offered to study it together, but the man refused, as he was annoyed by it. Celine began to make arguments saying that it would be useful to him because he was going to enemy territory, and she could give him a signal in this language. On this occasion, the heroine offered him to make a bet. It consists in the fact that whoever is the last to learn the secret language fulfills the desire of another. The man agreed, because it was not difficult for him to do, and the girl was confident in everything about her body, so she would definitely not lose. The man boasted of his advantage because he had been communicating with the nobles for decades from a girl who got here quite recently. Celine wanted to go take a nap before the tailors arrived, but she couldn't, because a tailor burst into the room who was in a hurry to see them. Devin greeted the Duke and he was ordered to begin his work. But for some reason the tailor began to take measurements from the gentleman and not from the girl. Then Calcion grabbed his head and reminded him that she had ordered dresses, not suits, after which he threatened to kill him. The girl decided to save the situation and said that everything was fine and there was no need to get angry, because creative people are always a little crazy. She suggested that we start working because, as the gentleman had said, she could not wear the same things. Then the tailor asked the lady to change into clothes in which he could take measurements from her. But the man did not go far. He sat and watched how the work was going. He literally burned them with his eyes. Sol tried to politely send him away, reminding him that he had a lot of paperwork to do. He had stayed here to help with the selection of things. The tailor finished his measurements and promised that he would make Lady Celine the most beautiful girl in Lenbird. Then Celine hugged the Duke from behind. He considers her the most beautiful woman even without clothes. It was her little revenge for the fact that the Duke did not want to leave. Then the tailor promised to sew the best dress that would not hide the beauty of Lady Celine. The girl asked why such a person stayed here and did not go to the capital. To which he replied that although the capital has its advantages, the assessment of work is completely different, even for the dress of the previous duchess. The heroine said that she wanted a dress that corresponds to the fashion trends of the capital. The tailor realized that the lady was going into high society, so he offered her a design option for a luxurious and modern dress. Selina liked it. Then the tailor clarified whether he should then make this design in 5 colors. Then he explained that the previous duchess had placed orders in this way. He thought Lady Selina would do the same, but then he offered her one dress for each design. The Duke asked to make it in 7 colors, and the tailor offered all the colors of the rainbow, gold, white, and black. But the girl refused. She thinks that there is a suitable color for every design. Calcion reminded that you need to be extravagant. Then she figured out how to beat her differently in her newly invented aristocratic way. She said that aristocrats should wear luxurious dresses and not those that are mass-produced. You need to make one dress, but with a soul. For example, create a new material or weave precious stones into the fabric of clothes. The tailor was very excited about these ideas and was glad that this lady appreciated the importance of their designs. The venture required a lot of human resources and additional costs, and the Duke was ready to pay. And he also added that in 20 days they had to prepare 100 options. The girl thought that somewhere here there was a factory that she did not know about. After that, the Duke provided an advance payment, and the tailor said that it was enough. He was happy to accept this order, and the heroine thought he was crazy. The next day, Celine had her first etiquette class, and Calcion asked Lady Jeanette how it had gone. She remained silent for a while. But then she said that Lady Celine was a genius and quickly grasped everything on the fly. At the beginning of the class, Selena asked why there were only two of them, and Jeanette explained that she would teach her a basic knowledge of etiquette. Then she added that joint classes with the Duke will begin after the girl receives all the basic knowledge. The heroine was interested in why this particular woman teaches her, even if she hides her dislike for her, but her facial expression speaks for itself. Jeanette is the second-born daughter of Baron Marin, so she is familiar with the rules of etiquette in the capital and has a lot of experience, so she asked the girl not to disgrace the honor of the Lenbird family. Jeanette will do everything possible to train the girl, and in case of failure, she promised that she would try to deal with everything. Since our heroine is an actress and has lived countless lives, she was sure that she would easily learn etiquette lessons. Therefore, she made it clear that it would be enough for her to show once everything that she had to remember. Jeanette doubted her confidence because every aristocrat learns noble etiquette from childhood and is even so afraid of making a mistake before his debut. But she agreed, warning that in case of failure, the girl would fully repay for the time spent. Jeanette looked at Selena and did not believe that such people really existed. She was shown more than 50 movements only once, and she repeated everything unmistakably. The girl seemed to radiate elegance and even came up with subtleties that she had not been taught. Selena asked how she coped, and the mentor replied curtly that she did perfectly. Lady Jeanette told the Duke and added that no one would even dare to recognize this girl as a commoner. Therefore, she has suspicions that Celine is not who she claims to be, but Calcione guarantees that this is not the case. He decided that at this rate, they would definitely pass all the lessons before leaving for the capital and warned that from tomorrow he would join the classes. After this conversation, the Duke watched Celine through the window. He was drawn into the thought that this girl was able to learn the intricate etiquette of the capital in just a day. In this scenario, he could lose this argument, but the man was not upset. He was just wondering what Celine would ask for in the end. In the evening, the main character was sitting at the table to drink tea. The servant was already aware that she had attended classes that day and told her about the rumors about how beautiful Lady Selene was, which explains why the Duke fell before her. This maid seemed strange because every connection was important to her, but she preferred to stay close to a person of unknown origin from whom she would not benefit. The girl wondered what she was really up to and wanted to expose her. Sol began to talk about Lady Jeanette and her perpetual frown. The maid was a little surprised that the head servant behaved like this even with Celine, and explained that this woman always looked at all the maids like that and constantly grumbled about honor, surprising how the previous duchess tolerated her. She told the girl that Jeanette followed the mistress and scolded her for every little thing, and even once received a slap in the face for constant grumbling. Selena still had a lot to learn from this maid. She had to keep her to herself, so she learned her name to get involved in a friendship. Juna was very happy with such an offer and was ready to chat at any time. Then the heroine mentioned death threats in her direction if she behaved like an upstart and wondered if someone had already died because of this. The maid confided that about a month before the wedding ceremony, his lordship's bride-to-be had committed suicide at her home in the capital. Juna had seen her in person because she had been among the maids who had been sent with her to the capital, and in her opinion the girl was ordinary and unremarkable, as well as sullen and taciturn. The girl was a little puzzled by this assessment, because the Duke considered her quiet and calm, while others considered her gloomy and gloomy, such similar and at the same time opposite descriptions. Juna did not like that bride at all, because in the capital she slept with everyone, but it was a secret. After the next classes, the heroine returned to the Duke tired and complained that you can't indulge with Madame Jeanette. As soon as you did something wrong, they looked at her like a bug. Lady Jeanette behaves like this with everyone except the Duke. Although he does not notice it, Celine mentioned how once the head maid received a slap in the face from his mother for eternal moralizing. But in the Duke's opinion, these were just advice on behavior. Then the girl suggested looking at everything from a different angle. She carefully approached the question of Ariel and believed that her death could be considered a suicide, since she had received a lot of pressure from Jeanette and others. To explain in detail, she asked for an introduction and asked that if that bride decided to end her life and she had no choice because of someone else's pressure, then it could be considered murder or not. Further conversation depended on the man's answer, and in his opinion, this situation is murder. Therefore, Selina shared her list of suspects, which included Jeanette and the maids who went to the capital with the bride. Their behavior may seem nonsense at first glance, including from the point of view of Calzone, because he never lived thinking about others like Ariel. The difference was that the Duke had power even if he didn't care about other people, and from that girl's side any word could cause a scandal. She was constantly living in fear of being thrown out of the manor. She could become an outcast from society for dishonoring the family, and such a person can do anything to himself. This feeling was familiar to Celine, because once her career collapsed due to rumors. But then her family gave her a helping hand, and she was saved, and Ariel had no one. The man wondered what words might make a man want to die, but they can't know for sure, and it's also important to consider her fear of being on the sidelines of life. Calcion would not have taken into account the growing scandal, since the deal with the Duchy of Dion was a simple one, where the Duke gives them money and is given an inconspicuous duchess in return. Then the heroine suggested that there was a situation that made the girl noticeable, for example the fact that she had promiscuous relations with men in the capital, but Calcion did not see this as a problem. He believed that there was nothing unusual in the fact that there were rumors about the Duchess. Selina said that this is just his point of view, but for some people in such a life situation, when no one is happy to see you, there are problems everywhere and you have nowhere to go. It seems that it is better to die. The girl didn't immediately notice how she jumped up while she was saying all this, but the man took her by the shoulders to calm her down and said that he didn't care what the rumors were, and if she didn't run away herself, he would never terminate their contract. Calzone promised that he would not leave Celine, but while they were connected, he asked that she not have affairs with another man. The next day, the main characters saw off their guests, namely Lady Fionel and Lady Rosaline. They went back to the capital. But when it was Celine's turn to say goodbye to Rosaline, she did not miss the opportunity to throw an imperceptible threat to get rid of her before she reached the capital. At last, the joint lesson with the Duke began. Jeanette said that she would list only a few things that it would be important for his lordship to know. The girl complained about such a difference in attitude towards students, to which she received only a remark that she did not use a polite style during the complaint, although this is not even a real situation. The Duke turned to Madame Jeanette and shared his opinion that her way of teaching was stricter than he thought, but she could not somehow explain to him the reason for such a difference in his etiquette and the etiquette of a mistress. Celine reminded the maid that she was not interested in the status of a duchess, nor did she intend to stay here forever, so she didn't need to be lectured as diligently. Calcion finally saw what excessive pressure was, and he knew that this was just the tip of the iceberg. The girl had long noticed how obedient Jeanette was to her master's words and did not understand what her problem was. Calcion had heard that Selina was a quick learner, and he had learned a bit when he was younger, so he assumed that they would finish quickly if Lady Jeanette wasn't so strict. But it didn't work out quickly. Even after a few hours of training, the man continued to make mistakes. The girl thought it was funny, and in the sign language they were learning today, she decided to laugh at him, calling him a fool. He justified himself by saying that he just hadn't warmed up yet. Then Sewell offered to try again and gestured if she could go to bed in his room again. He answered her with a gesture, and so they began a silent dialogue in which she managed to embarrass the man. Calcion admitted his defeat in the bet and promised to fulfill any wish of the girl if only she would stop it. But in the end, she asked him to correctly interpret the gestures that he would show, but he failed again. Selina told him that sign language was vital, and he needed to pull himself together, otherwise it would be more difficult for him to integrate into high society. She asked him to start again. They started a light dialogue of gestures, in which this time Calcion managed to embarrass the girl. The Duke said that Selina had mastered sign language perfectly, so she could finish and start dancing classes. He asked the lady if she had ever learned ballroom dancing, and, as it turned out, no, she was only a little fond of K-pop dancing, but he did not need to know. He explained how partners greet each other. The young man bowed to the lady, and she had to curtsy. Then the Duke took her hand and kissed it, a gesture that made her cheeks flush, and she was overcome with embarrassment. Although our heroine is the best actress in Korea, it was still difficult for her to control her emotions. She considered the beauty of this man a crime, and the room suddenly became hot. The young man showed her the basic steps and said that in ballroom dancing usually led by men, so she would only need to adjust to his rhythm, and that's it, so they began to dance. Selena looked at her partner's appearance, and in order not to create awkwardness, she decided to return to the topic of desire and said that she wanted to address her partner by an invented nickname. She chose something distorting the name and called it Calzone. Despite the displeased face, the man kept his promise and agreed to it. The girl thought that the more she gets to know her partner, the better she understands that he is a pretty good man, given his external and internal qualities. The characters were a little carried away by dancing. They looked into each other's eyes, but each was thinking about their own things, and they did not even immediately notice how they stopped and finished. The girl shared her impressions with the Duke. She liked it very much, and it was quite fun. These words led the man to a dead end. He remembered how his mother said that he danced disgustingly, but perhaps what he heard from Selena was pleasant to him. Madame Jeanette praised the mistress, and the Duke mentally agreed that the girl was really a genius, because none of the aristocrats could immediately master etiquette, dancing, and even sign language. Just amazing. They finished their lesson. The Duke decided to go to his room first, and Selene shouted after him that it was fun today and called him Calzone. A few days passed, their training ended, the girl stood in the room, and around her lay the collected things. She could hardly believe that the tailor Divin really sewed 100 dresses in just 20 days. During all this time there were many ups and downs, but the girl endured everything steadfastly. She was happy about it, and she was also glad that tomorrow, finally, she would go to the capital. But before leaving, she wanted to talk to Juna. The girl thanked her for her help with packing, and she was offered chamomile tea to calm down before the trip. The heroine tried to understand the motives of the servant, why she revolved around Ariel. Perhaps the reason was that the daughter-in-law was easy to manipulate. Perhaps against the background of the attitude of others to the girl, Juna wanted to seem the only person for Ariel who treats her well. Considering this, the maid can also be considered a suspect, but it is unlikely that she could have killed, but rather simply contributed to the death of the girl, without knowing it. After these reflections, Selena asked Juna if she had already packed her things. But she was not included in the list of escorts, so Sol promised to put in a word for her. Her intuition told her that this maid would be useful to her in finding an important lead. The next day, the couple was already riding in a carriage. Selena was very bored, especially with the not very talkative Duke, so she decided to just watch him. When she got tired of this activity, she still asked what her companion was doing. He was studying some statistics, analyses, and reports. The girl asked to tell him more about it. She was so bored that she wouldn't mind knowing how many hairs there were on the master's head. The man asked to stop talking about such strange things, but agreed to talk about these documents. He showed her a map of Lenbird and the lands that people try not to go to, as they are infested with demons, and there he saved the girl, and she began to doubt that this man was a man. He also showed the most suitable land for the population. There are hot springs, but due to population growth, you have to face such a problem as the expansion of the territory. The territory of Lenbird is so large that it can be compared to an entire country, and it is considered independent. Calcion said that he had to deal with huge stacks of papers relating to the palace, although it was not his duty. These were supposed to be dealt with by Crown Prince Lawson, but due to his precarious position he could not, but now everything seems to be fine for him. Selene assumed that the power of the Duke's lord was desired by all aristocrats, especially the ruling family, and they would not leave him alone until he gave up his lands himself, or until he was expelled from them. This led to the idea that it would be more profitable for the crown prince to kill the Duke than to overthrow him, because he has no relatives and heirs, which means that it is beneficial for them to have the death of Ariel, so that she does not give birth to a successor to the Duke. The girl thought that the crown prince might be among the suspects, and the Duke added that he would not get his hands dirty, but perhaps he had something to do with the death. Half an hour later, they arrived at the stronghold, where they were supposed to stop temporarily. In the window, the girl saw people who had come out to meet the Duke. She began to worry about her appearance. She urgently needed to braid her hair and change clothes. The girl could not do it herself, and asked the Duke to help tighten her belt, at which point they were notified that they had arrived. Calcion was helping a lady get ready for the first time, so everything did not work out well for him. He tightened his belt too much. And somehow they fell into an awkward position, and it was at that moment that the subordinates opened the doors of the carriage because they were worried, heard loud noises. Soon they were sitting at the table. The girl was very ashamed of that situation, so she decided to turn the situation in her favor. So she warned the man to get ready with the help of gesture language and lay down on his lap. She spoke in an almost childish manner about wanting to eat so that she could be fed, and at the same time called him a new cute nickname. In sign language, Calcion asked what the girl was doing, but she replied that she would explain after the end of the performance. He had nothing to do but play along. He fed her with a fork, cut off pieces of her steak, and listened to her cute babbling. The servants who had been watching them all this time were shocked, to say the least. Everything was exactly as Celine wanted. Even though Calcion had sincerely said that he would not leave her, she still couldn't trust him completely. She needed a lever of pressure that would prevent him from breaking the contract, and she chose everyone's attention to their couple as leverage. The man didn't see the need for a play until they were in Lenbird, but the girl didn't agree with him because his acting skills were so bad and they still needed to practice, especially since she couldn't use sign language to ask him to play along. You don't need a lot of intelligence to feed someone, so the girl has a real acting that includes improvisation. She explained that you can't learn this without practice, but you can try to move in a different direction and suggested trying one idea. She asked him to imagine that one of the nobles had asked the Duke why he fell in love with this girl. Then he would just need to describe the positive qualities that come to mind when he looks at a girl. She told him to think carefully and answer the question of what he could say when he looked at her. First of all, Calcion said that the girl was beautiful. Then he began to describe her appearance in detail, without missing a single detail. Selena was embarrassed to listen to all the praise and compliments face to face, but she pulled herself together and asked to summarize. But looking at the girl, only thoughts creep into the Duke's head about how incredibly beautiful she is. He said it sincerely and didn't really understand what he was doing wrong, because Selena was silent for a while at first, just looking at him. But then she covered her face with her hands, her ears reddened, and she could only squeeze out that she hoped the Duke could say that about her in public. She was saved from an awkward situation by a servant who announced that the water for bathing was ready, and our heroes went to the bath. But there, an even more embarrassing surprise awaited them from the maids. The couple had to bathe in the same room, where they were separated by only one thin screen. And Calzone apparently was not embarrassed at all, because he calmly took off his robe and climbed into the bathtub allotted to his person. The girl was outraged by such a reaction. When the maid was about to start massaging the shoulders for the master, she was grabbed by Selene's hand and stated that she did not want anyone to touch her man's body and asked everyone to come out. When the extra people left, the girl said that she would help the Duke wash herself and went in his direction, ignoring the request to stop. In her head, she noted that this man was handsome without clothes. She reassured him that he was not ashamed when he, being naked, was in the same room with her, and they were separated by only one screen. She assured him that she did not intend to do anything strange, but just wanted to help him wash. The girl ran the washcloth over her shoulders and felt the man tense up. She asked if he had thought about what could have happened if the girl hadn't taken everything into her own hands and kicked them out. She bent down to his ear, scorching with hot breath, and said that the maids would wonder if the Duke did not see her as a woman. Of course, these actions had their effect, and the man realized that he had made a mistake. Then she said to get down to business, because now that they had kicked out the servants, they had to play the scene of coition. The servants outside the door heard all the remarks that said that these two were pleasing each other. In fact, Celine had given the Duke a back massage, and it must have been pleasant. The gentleman left the room, holding the girl in his arms, because she was tired while working there in the bathroom. He asked where their room was. It turned out that Lady Jeanette had put them in different rooms, and they were far apart. Selena said that she wanted to sleep in the same room with her beloved, so without even listening to what the maid was saying about Madame Jeanette, the Duke silently went to his room with the girl. The maids were very surprised. They gathered in a circle and began to discuss the rumors that apparently now this girl would be in charge of the master's domain, and not Madame Jeanette, because the Duke had never listened to her words. When they arrived, the girl praised Calcion for doing a great job. She was glad that they had found a way to fool everyone without lying or acting. They would just have to repeat what they had done today and say it in a way that others would misinterpret. She offered to give him a massage in the room, in which she would put all her remaining strength, and in the morning the girl would complain that after the night before, her body was languishing with pain, and the Duke would answer that he asked her not to overdo it, but they did not listen to him. Before going to bed, they can do physical exercises, where Selena will show new positions, and then, tired, they will go to bed, and in the morning the Duke will say how much he liked this hot night, because thanks to the girl, he learned about the new capabilities of his body. Saul was very happy with this situation. She was very happy that they had found the perfect way to fool people, thanks to which they would become invincible. The next day, in the evening, Madame Jeanette arrived. She told the Duke that she had a private conversation with Lady Selene. Her face was not the most satisfied. She personally came and asked the girl to live separately from Calcion from that day on. Salt clearly conveyed to the woman that it was none of her business, and that it was inappropriate for an etiquette teacher to interfere in the relationship between two adults. But Jeanette believed that, as a faithful servant of the Duke of Lenberd, she cared for his lordship's honor and had every right to do so. She could not sit idly by when his lordship's honor was threatened, and the measures taken would depend on Lady Selene's perniciousness. She is ready to monitor her behavior until she begins to glorify the good name of the Duke, and not vice versa. Selena said that Jeanette was going too far with her education, because it was their personal life, and it could be assumed that she was trying to intimidate the girl with the above words. From the servant's point of view, it would be more correct for Sol to act as if she didn't care about the Duke, start keeping her distance, and go to sleep separately. But the girl was not satisfied with this option, so Jeanette believes that the mistress does not care about his lordship's honor. The heroine still cannot believe that this woman behaves so impudently. She cannot understand how the Duke's reputation can be spoiled by the fact that they will sleep in the same room or be close to each other. If this really had a detrimental effect on his reputation, he himself would have asked the girl to stop doing this. But the madam said that the master is not always able to keep track of the actions of the people around him, so she does it more often. The girl reminded her that she was not a servant to be watched over and taught, but a guest whom the Duke had personally brought in his arms, and that the fault-finding of the etiquette teacher and the head maid would not help his lordship's honor in any way. Jeanette said that even so, she had the right to point out mistakes that were detrimental to the Duke's honor, which meant that she could lecture anyone regardless of their status. But the heroine had long noticed that her behavior did not extend to the noble ladies who had previously visited the Duke, and in particular to Lady Fional, who was not polite to his lordship. Selena hoped that Jeanette understood where she was leading, and when she left, she asked to be treated like those ladies in the future. The woman realized that she had screwed up. She was not attentive and gave herself away, but she promised to be more careful in the future from now on. For the honor of the Lenberd family and the future heir, she would never allow this girl to act on her own. The heroine was already sitting in the bathroom with the maid Juna. They were talking about Celine's victory. She was glad that she was able to put the head maid in her place. It was a little cold in the room, so the girl closed the window and plunged into a hot bath. The maid noticed that she had forgotten her hair ties. She had to go to get them, but she promised to bring something to drink with her for the lady. Selena enjoyed solitude and thought about all sorts of things, for example, about how she wants to look through the news on the internet, or about the advantages of being in this world. Also, she thought about the killer. Sul hoped that it would be a girl who only wielded a fan and not a knife. As soon as the girl found the perfect position for herself, the room immediately became dark. For some unknown reason, the candle went out. She called out to the servant, but she was not there. A cold breeze blew. Celine noticed that the window was open. Apparently, the candle had gone out due to a strong gust of wind, but she remembered for sure that she had closed it and no one was approaching it. She suddenly remembered the last threat from Rosaline when she had seen her off, and she thought about it, not immediately noticing how suddenly the dark silhouette of a stranger appeared next to her. In order for the criminal not to be able to drown the girl in the water, she jumped out of the bathtub but did not have time to escape, and she was grabbed, covering her mouth with his hand. She bit someone else's finger and, freeing herself, began to call for help, but the stranger managed to escape through the window. Then, in response to the screams, the armed Duke and his subordinates flew into the room to save the girl. Celine pointed towards the open window, and the man sent for the fugitive, who immediately ran to carry out the order. Answering Calcion's question, the girl said that the criminal broke in almost as soon as the maid left the room. Saul looked at his angry face. He was clearly angry about what had happened, but he didn't even ask if she was okay. Selina had no strength left from her worries, and she asked for help to get up. She was glad if they just gave her a hand, but the Duke even picked her up. It was unexpected. A shocked Lady Jeanette flew up to them asking what had happened here and whether the master was okay, but he said that the attempt had not been on him, but on his girlfriend. Her anxiety then quickly turned to frustration, and she was ordered to send a maid to help them. The heroes had already moved into the room. The man was examining the girl's bruises, which she received when she fought off the killer. Her feet were cold, and Calcion did not call the servants. He decided to dry her feet himself and treat the wounds. Selina was surprised and embarrassed by how gently he treated her. She began to think that she was starting to feel something for a man, but quickly dismissed these thoughts. The Duke is not often assassinated, and he did not think that this time the killer would target the girl, and not him. He assured that this would not happen again, but Sul could not be calm, because even if there was an escort, there were still people among them who could kill. Then, to make it easier for her, the Duke offered to analyze the details of the planned murder in order to carefully prepare later. Since the killer did not use a weapon, this may mean that he was going to disguise everything as an accident. Celine suggested that it could have been planned by the same person who killed Ariel, because they also wanted to fake that case by suicide. The girl asked if Lady Jeanette could hire an assassin because of hatred for her, because she had recently quarreled with her and even rudely her. But the man does not think that his main servant will do this, but as for Fionel and Rosaline, it is quite possible, or it could be someone else. Dion approached the couple and reported that they had almost managed to catch the culprit, but he had killed himself when he realized he had nowhere to run, and he also noted that he was not a simple rookie. No witnesses or evidence were found, and the Duke ordered the body to be disposed of, and his confidants contacted so that they could secretly bring an investigator. According to Calzone, there are not many families in the Empire that can hire such a trained assassin, and everyone needs to be checked for their involvement. Celine offered to lie down for a nap. She was sure that after bravely fighting off the killer, she would instantly fall asleep. But she was mistaken. She could not sleep, because memories of this incident crept into her head, and it bothered her, so the man asked if she was okay. The girl did not expect that he would come so close and pushed him a little away from her shoulder. And since they both could not sleep, the Duke offered to teach the girl the art of using a sword, and she gladly agreed. Sul was very happy, because thanks to this, she will be able to protect herself more effectively, and physical activity will help her get tired and fall asleep. She was given a real sword, which was heavier than she had imagined, but she was very good at wielding it. According to Calcion, this sword was made specifically for fighting beasts, so it is much heavier than usual. As requested, Celine raised the gun above her head and lowered it sharply to the floor, which was just excellent. The Duke was inspired. He saw the potential in the girl and saw the makings of a real knight, and if she was properly trained, she would be stronger than her. His gaze was like that of a professor who has been offered a very interesting project that he could not even dream of. The heroes rode in a carriage, and Selina complained of severe shoulder pain after training and asked to rest today. But Calcion said that muscle pain can only be relieved by exercise, so from tomorrow, she will have more intense training, since the main danger awaits them in the capital. The man said that they would soon arrive in the capital, so he covered the other people's shoulders with his raincoat and offered the girl to sleep. They arrived late at night. They were greeted by the butler, and the man asked them to be quiet as his girlfriend was asleep and she needed to rest. The worker pointed out where the lady's room was, but the Duke stated that she would sleep in his room and asked to be taken there. The man carefully put the girl on the bed and asked to call a maid for her, and he went around the mansion to make sure that his companion was completely safe. The chief butler reported to the Duke that they had thoroughly searched the mansion and strengthened security. The man praised them for their work and ordered to strengthen the door locks, because they can be broken, so it is better to be safe. Calcion completed his rounds and went to sleep. He decided to lie down to the left of the girl so that he could react quickly if someone entered. He hugged the beauty and convinced himself that he was doing all this to protect his business partner in the contract and nothing more. Celine woke up and was surprised at how early she had gotten up as the sun had not yet risen, but she wished Calcion good morning anyway. To which he replied that it was too late for the morning. It turned out that the girl had slept for 24 hours, and it was not dawn, but sunset outside the window. She was very hungry, but refused delivery so that the room would not smell of food and decided to eat at the table. At the Duke's request, she took an escort with her to the dining room for her personal safety. Going inside, she greeted the servant. But she turned out to be not friendly at all, but despite this, the girl still asked to bring her food. For a while she was ignored, and then a dirty plate with incomprehensible contents was placed in front of her. Initially, Selena just wanted to find out information from the girl, but plans changed, and she decided to teach the A lesson. She said that she was going to share a meal with the Duke, but hoped that it would be enough for them, and thanked them for their efforts. But the maid immediately tried to snatch the plate, justifying herself by saying that she did not know that they would both eat, so she said that she would cook food for 2 people and asked the guest not to go anywhere. Soon there was a normal girl for 2 people in front of Celine. The maid tried very hard and assured that the food was fresh. Then the girl said that the Duke would not come and he decided to rest, so she would eat here and go back. But she would have been bored to eat alone, so she asked the maid to share the meal with her, or rather, she delicately ordered her net to the table. She slapped the maid on the arm as she reached for food, as she was not allowed to eat what was served to her master. And so that she did not look at her just like that, Selena decided to kindly share the soup that this girl was so diligently cooking. After the first spoons, she began to vomit and she apologized to the mistress, and she believed that since they asked her for forgiveness, then there was a reason for it. Sol told the maid that, judging by her reaction, she had not cooked her food in good faith and had definitely mixed something into it, so she ordered the butler to be called immediately. The butler came, and the whole situation was explained to him, but he began to defend the maid in an open form. Even after solid arguments and facts, the man continued to insist on his own, and Selena quickly realized what kind of person was standing in front of her. This man with a pleasant appearance definitely has a lot of power because Calcion is almost never in the mansion, so he imagines himself to be the second owner. The girl realized that in this situation she could not do without the help of Calcion, and she would solve this problem. And now she continues this discussion, in which she suggested that these servants are like a family, because only in a family people protect each other so much. The butler thought to himself how stubborn this girl was, but promised aloud that he would later take action about this situation. Selena did not like this man. She decided to just leave so that he would think that everything would work out, but in fact, revenge awaits him. He breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that the girl had calmed down and wished her a good rest. After that, the butler calmed the maid and said that nothing terrible would happen, just tomorrow there would be an official meeting. There was no reason to worry. He was sure that the Duke would not attach much importance to this. The next day, an official meeting was held, where the butler apologized to the Duke. He reported that he had taken action against the maid by lecturing her and had merely made her a cleaning lady. But the Duke was as clear as day that he had deliberately chosen a light punishment for her. The butler admitted his mistake, and Calcion asked the man what he should have done to the servant. He did not want to drown with the girl, so he replied that it was necessary to kick her out of the mansion at the same second. But this was not enough, so he added that the amount for moral damage would be deducted from her salary. The Duke was convinced that Celine was quite satisfied with such a decision in relation to this servant, but she added that since the butler had also hurt her, he should also be fired. Falling to his knees, the butler began to apologize and justify himself by saying that the servants were like family to him, so he protected them without realizing it. He couldn't lose his position because of this mistress, so it wasn't a pity to sacrifice his pride. But Celine claimed to have seen the butler ask one of the maids to bring government money the night before. He began to say that it was all slander and there were no witnesses. Unfortunately, he did not find support in the crowd, in which they only began to whisper. The Duke wants to avoid the turmoil in his house, especially since he knows that the butler has always been like this. If he had done the right thing in the first place, Selena would not have bothered him, so he decided that everyone involved in this incident would be fired. Calcion also added that he would order an additional investigation, and the more they discovered, the worse the punishment would be. The couple began to leave, and Selena turned to the butler. She had set everything up on purpose and thereby repaid him in kind. Soon, the heroes were already sitting at the table and talking about how good it was that they immediately figured everything out. Perhaps this butler did the same to Ariel, since she was afraid to tell the Duke about it. Then the man believed that others would remain silent as well. The Duke is annoyed that this is the second time he has been stabbed in the back, but thanks to this incident, he has learned many things. Today, the Duke was waiting for fencing training, and Celine asked to join him, because before she had only had to practice in her room. The man agreed, but she needed to change her dress to comfortable clothes, so she went to change. She was already standing in the dressing room with Juna, who claimed that she should always be there and asked the mistress not to neglect her help anymore. Selena remarked that apparently Juna thinks that she is the only one the girl can rely on, so she wonders how it will end. The girl chooses the right clothes for the mistress, and Sul wants to wear pants, but the maid begins to protest because they will look nondescript. Selena would be more comfortable in them because she would participate in the training, and then Juna began to be indignant. According to her, ladies with a sword in their hands are not attracted to men. The girl didn't like the way this maid covered up the insult with care. If she continued like this, nothing would be left of her self-esteem. The heroine compared Juna to a protective mother, but she justified herself by saying that she was just worried about the lady, because the capital is a terrible place. Selena believes that Juna fusses a lot for no reason, but she will turn a blind eye to it for now, although she should always be on the alert. She shared with her interlocutor that she was uncomfortable with the local servants, but she was told that everyone in the capital was so tough. While the mistress was in the capital, Juna asked to always be with her because she would take care of everything. The training was already over, and the girl was admiring this ferocious sight. The Duke was clearly confident in his soldiers. Calcion noticed that they trained every morning and apologized that the girl had almost been killed anyway. The girl was eager to start training, and Jian asked her what she wanted to practice. He couldn't wrap his head around how this girl could be able to fence with such thin hands. Then this girl decided to show what her hands were capable of. She quickly snatched the sword from the Duke and put it to Dion's neck. Dion began to defend his lordship. He did not believe that this lady was human, because for such a body, she was too good with a sword. But Calcion explained that he was just teaching her in his spare time. The other man was surprised that she was able to learn it in just a couple of days. A worker approached them and told them that a messenger had arrived and insisted on an urgent meeting with his lordship. The messenger said he was from the royal palace, and the queen handed over a letter for the Duke. Selena initially thought that this was what the Duke had told her in the carriage, that the crown prince had begun to act, but she was mistaken. Calcion was clearly not delighted with this news. With a displeased face, he took the letter in his hands. The letter said that Queen Meryl planned to visit Calcion tomorrow. She and the princess were excited by the news of his arrival in the capital. After reading it, he had no qualms about telling the queen that he would not be able to receive her because he was not feeling well. Dion asked the messenger why he was so nervous, since he would not be killed because of the Duke's refusal. He explained that the Lord refused every time on such a pretext, and the queen might think that she was being deceived. Then Dion offered to tell Her Majesty that the Duke had been injured during training. Then Calcion attacks Celine with a sword in his hands, which frightens her, but she accepts the challenge with mischief on her face. He was sure that she would definitely repel the blow, so he did not worry about her safety at all. The other two were watching this scene and thought that the messenger would not have to lie. When he left, Calcion offered to spar for plausibility despite the fact that he taught the girl only the basics. He saw how well she was holding up, so he said he wouldn't let her go until she hit him. No matter how many times the heroine struck, the man always blocked or deflected her attacks. The opponent said that she needed to learn to read his movements. She did not succeed, and it was difficult for her. But the student began to get used to it, and the teacher's movements no longer seemed so fast. She noticed that he had some unprotected places when he attacked, so she tried to attack there. But after making a move, she lost her balance and began to fall, but the tutor reacted quickly and caught her. He gave the girl advice not to deceive herself with unprotected places. Celine immediately showed her cunning and lightly hit her opponent on the head with her sword. She began to laugh and repeated the words of others, telling the Duke that he should not deceive himself with his lack of protection. He chuckled and agreed that if this was a real fight, then he would have already died. Halcyon praised the girl, calling her a genius and saying that she needed to practice more so that her body remembered everything. Dion, watching them, thought that after Celine's appearance, the master had changed a lot, and perhaps there was really something between them. Sol was already exhausted and complained that the Duke was many times stricter than her personal trainer. She could already feel her muscles aching, and tomorrow she wouldn't be thanking him for it. Selene asked the man why he refused to visit, and if the queen was their suspect, to which he agreed, and added that she would see her often afterwards. But sooner or later he would have to accept her, and the girl thought that perhaps this queen was as annoying as Rosalind. But if you compare it with Fionel, then everything is much simpler with her, and in general she resembles a puppy. Halcyon warned that it was necessary to prepare for the meeting, because the queen only seemed innocent on the surface, but in fact everything was not so simple. She will continue her attempts to bring him to the princess anyway, so they should be on their guard here. The man explained that he has a strained relationship with the heir to the throne, rather than with the royal family as a whole. The title of queen is as shaky as the heir to the throne, so he needs to make the Duke part of his family. To protect himself, he wants to marry the princess to a nobleman and get more power, so the Duke is the perfect option for them. It seems that the queen has heard rumors about Celine, so you can be sure that she has a grudge against her. The girl began to leave, saying that she needed to prepare because she did not know when exactly the queen would appear to them. The Duke asked how exactly she was going to prepare, but she could not give a clear answer and left. Finally, it was time to become a society girl. The poets Selena and Juna were already ready to go. They were going shopping. The maid was happy to see them and did her best to find only popular shops. According to her, Miss Ariel also loved to shop. She visited the most popular and famous places. Celine found out that Juna used to live in Mion, so she decided to find out how she got to the Duke. According to the girl, she was then looking for a job, and a friend told her that the Duke of Lenberg had a vacancy. The heroine found all this very suspicious. She got the impression that Juna deliberately wanted to get to Lenberg, otherwise it was not clear why she would get a job so far from home. But the maid justified herself by saying that she was just in a hurry to find a job due to financial difficulties, and she is glad that it turned out that way, because thanks to this, she met Celine. After analyzing Juna's constant behavior, the girl became more and more convinced that the maid had become close to her for a reason. And there is a high probability that someone is watching her and trying to distance her from Halcyon, and probably they have plans for the death of the girl. Juna exclaimed they had already arrived at the planned place, namely Diate's shop. As they walked out, the girl decided that she would be careful with the maid, even though she was unlikely to do anything in a popular store. They approached the main entrance, but they were stopped by security guards and told that they could not let them in, since there were no places in the store. A couple of other girls approached them, and one of them turned to Selene, saying that she was probably here for the first time, and continued her pust. For some reason, these girls were allowed inside. It seemed that only the chosen ones were allowed in. Then the heroine asked the guards why they let these ladies in if there were no places in the store. She was told that their visit had been planned in advance, but Selena was quick to remind her that it was a clothing store, not a restaurant. Not receiving an answer, she asked what conditions must be met in order to be among the chosen ones who can enter. But this question remained unanswered. The girl really lacked Halcyon's help, but she cannot disturb him yet. Then she decided to cope on her own, presented to the security guard that he had no right to assess her ability to enter the store. She wanted to talk to someone who was worthy of her attention, and asked to call the manager. A girl came out to them and politely introduced herself as the store manager Diate. She appreciated Celine's appearance and concluded that she was an aristocrat from some suburb and probably had not heard of the store's rules. The woman thought that she was from Almania, from where nobles often come who want a lot of things. She wondered how brightly the girl would react to the refusal and said that she had heard that they did not want to let her in. As Selena said, she didn't know it was a shop for the elite, and the problem was clearly not that she hadn't warned about her visit. The manager expected the girl to get angry right away, but this did not happen. Then she explained that this store serves as a salon, so they give priority to those people they already know. The heroine pretended that she was sorry, because at the next reception she would appear as the partner of the Duke of Lenbird. She didn't want to ruin the Duke's reputation, so she came to Milan specifically for new collections, but she can visit another place. When the manager found out about the Duke, she decided to ignore the rules and said that she would do everything possible for the girl. She warned that there are already a lot of visitors, and therefore it may be uncomfortable. As Selena walked deeper into the store, she could clearly hear the other customers whispering to each other about her. She sat down on the sofa. It was clear that the girl was not delighted with these looks, but decided that it would be a great workout for her. The heroine looked at the collections in the magazine offered to her. The outfits were fundamentally different from those that are sewn in the North, but she liked them. Without thinking twice, she slams this book shut and declares that she buys all the dresses they have. While the manager was perplexed, a wave of comments again passed among the rest of the visitors. And the girl did not care how much these dresses cost because the Duke of Lenbird would pay. She also added her wishes for some models to be in several colors, and you can add a floral print. The woman, realizing that this lady decided to collect a whole wardrobe for herself, was very happy because she would get rich on this. She said that they had some ready-made designs and offered to try them on. While the staff was helping the girl, she was thinking that in this place everything is decided by money. Only with its help you can make people work normally. They finished trying on this dress, and Sol went out into the hall to show how she looked in this outfit. Everyone was delighted with the appearance, and the girl was pleased with such a reaction. She was able to attract attention and give rise to the rumors necessary for the case. Selena likes this dress and wants to get it as soon as possible, to which the manager said that she would have it before lunchtime. Then the lady promised to return later. She began to leave, as some young man stopped, which frightened the girls. He introduced himself, his name was Smith, and he was the second son of Baron Chade. The girl had never heard of him before. Since she didn't have a seat at the table, this brave guy decided to invite her to join him. Sol noticed that he was dressed more modestly than the people at the central tables, which could mean that he was not a particularly influential person. If she sat there, it would mean that she belonged to their class, so she politely declined him. But Smith did not want to retreat and decided to find out at least the name of the girl. She felt like an antelope in a pen with lions. Selena explained that her Calcion was very jealous, and she would only be able to get to know him normally in his presence. At the mention of this person, the young man quickly stepped back and apologized for disturbing him. Juna very emotionally praised the image of Selena, claiming that when she was seen at the reception, everyone would be delighted. The heroine decided to change the topic and asked how Mrs. Ariel used to behave. According to the maid, Ariel was gloomy at first, but then she abruptly began to flirt with others, and in Sol's head, these actions did not add up to one person. She also said that this bride was also not allowed into the establishments at first, but then she ordered 5 dresses in the store and everything changed. Juna apologized for not warning the girl that not everyone was allowed into the store, but the girl interpreted it as consciousness in a special frame-up. The maid offered to go somewhere else, but Selene refused because she was tired and wanted to rest. She pointed to the flower shop and said that she would take a break and Juna could walk around and look for a place where they would be accepted. The girl apparently did not want to go alone, but the mistress does not want to go through such stress again. Therefore, she decided that the assistant would cope, because nothing is impossible for her, and it does not matter that it is not true. An hour later, she runs in and announces that she has found Rumor's place, but does not know if it is good, since she has never been there. Selene was speechless. She thought about how hard it was for Ariel and must have been scared. Having summed up all the evidence, she made a conclusion with a certain list of reasons and suspects in the death of the previous bride, but at the same time, maybe no one wanted to get rid of her, and it was an accident. She was pulled out of her intricate thoughts by the man who also accompanied them, and the girl suggested that they go to Rumera. But he had not called her for that, but because an urgent message had arrived from His Excellency. The message indicated the Queen's visit, which means that they need to return urgently. On her return, Selene found a picture that excited her very much. She saw the Duke, although it seemed to be nothing unusual. He played sports, there was nothing wrong with that, but he didn't look like a sick man at all, and the queen would be arriving soon. As an experienced actress, the girl cannot leave it just like that, so she firmly decided to turn the athlete into a patient. She picked up suitable clothes for him, attached a wet towel, and some other important details. But the Duke still did not look like a sick man, but only looked charming. But the problem wasn't her job done, it was the fact that he looked too healthy, as if he had never been sick in his life. It turned out that Calcion had never really been sick and had never been in bed with a fever. At least he did not remember it. He was not allowed to be sick because he had to work and perform his duties, so he did not know how to pretend to be sick. The girl used to think that all nobles grow up in good conditions. She felt sorry for the Duke, so she put her hand on his head as a sign of comfort. The man did not understand such a sign at all, and therefore was quite confused by such a touch. But then he got used to it and started talking about the fact that if you overcome the problem over time, the whole world will be in control of you. It sounded like a quote in Celine's eyes. She didn't know what to say to it, but she patted him on the head anyway and complimented him like a child. Sitting on the chair, the girl stretched well and yawned, not trying to hide her fatigue at all. Then the Duke suggested that she take a nap, for the queen would not enter without permission, and he would wake her up when necessary. There was no need to invite him to rest twice. The girl immediately began to shamelessly move the patient to the side. She asked to be woken up in 5 minutes, and she would wake up immediately, but she did not have time to finish the sentence because she fell asleep. The man was watching the sleeping beauty. He noticed that this lady did not bother him at all, but on the contrary, he got used to her. Then a servant entered the room, bowing to his master, announcing that the queen had arrived. This means that it is time to wake Celine. The Duke reached out to her and wanted to call her by name, but something stopped him from doing so. He withdrew his hand and went to bed with an almost abrupt movement, pretending to be either dead or asleep. The servant was at a loss at this act, but the master said that he was ill and asked the servant to tell him that he was asleep. An hour later, Celine, with her eyes wide open, quickly assumed a sitting position and began to resent the fact that she had not been woken up. But the man only adhered to her instructions because the patient must get enough sleep. Sol almost cried from her unpresentable appearance. Her dress was wrinkled and her hair was disheveled. As Calcoin confirmed, the queen had come with the princess, though he didn't want to even think about it. Celine imagined the queen and thought that she would be strict. Along the way, she cleaned herself up and was already ready. Only then did the Duke ask his servant to tell the queen that he was ready to receive her. A rather nice and pleasant-looking lady came into the room and politely greeted her. A little girl was standing next to her. The heroine opened her mouth in surprise. You might think that there were 2 princesses standing in front of her because the queen looked younger than herself. The queen had come because she had heard rumors of the Duke's illness, but in her opinion he did not appear so. She locked eyes with Celine and gave away her assumption that she had been denied an audience because the Duke was spending time with this wife. He insisted that he was not feeling well, so he could not see the guest, for which he apologized. The woman accepted the apology. She came without permission because she wanted to make sure that the man was really sick. The heroine noticed that the queen is very smart and honest. It was a little difficult for her to believe in her honesty. Everything is clearly not so simple here. The girl curtsied and introduced her name to the guest. She gave her polite greeting, as they do when they meet. The lady in the hat noticed that the lady was incredibly pale and saw such a beauty for the first time. Celine did not know how to behave properly with the queen, and she noticed her tension. She saw the girl shaking all over and asked if she was trembling with fear that the queen might kill her. The woman was touched by the reaction of this girl. She was amused to have fun with her before the wedding, but she calmed her down, saying that she was not going to kill or hurt. The heroine was confused. She did not understand why the interlocutor mentioned the murder. Judging by this, she communicated with Ariel. To clarify what kind of wedding she was talking about, the queen said that the Duke was going to get married, and it would be nice if he married Jeriel. She spoke openly about marriage with a small child, and Selena revealed that she was going to tie her whole life to the Duke. Meryl asked the man if he was of the same opinion, but he believes that in the future he will be more visible. Now he does not care about marriage, and he is confident in his feelings, but the queen reminded that not everything always happens the way you want. She turned to Celine and advised her not to rely on her feelings, although she believes that listening to her heart is important. A woman found such a statement cute, but the fact is that there is a difference between love and marriage is a matter for adults. The heroine considers the princess too young for such a case, but according to the queen, some young people behave like adults. And in order to convince the girl that Jeriel really wanted to marry the duke, she asked the girl herself. Selena did not approve of the fact that such questions were asked of a 10-year-old girl. Maybe she did not understand the meaning of this question at all. But they did not have to wait long. The princess answered positively to the question put to her. She seemed modest and shy. The heroine somehow reacted brightly. She took the girl by the shoulders and asked her to think about it again, because the duke was twice her age. She was not bothered by Calcion's presence at all. She continued to convince the child that he was an old, scary, and stupid uncle. The girl spoke softly. She had a very weighty argument because the Duke of the North is very handsome. Then she continued to speak louder. She did not consider him old. He was at the ideal age for marriage. She considered him handsome under any circumstances. The girl felt fanatical love for him. Selena perfectly understood this teenage love, but still believed that the girl had something to think about. She calmly talked to her and tried to convey the soap that not only one person loves in a relationship. The princess reflected on the fact that no matter how much she asked the duke about his feelings, he never answered. She was sure that he would definitely love her, but the interlocutor said that the man's heart was already occupied by her. Then the princess began to be capricious and shout that she was more beautiful, she had more money and had a position. But Celine doesn't have to be the best in everything for the duke to love her, because they both immediately realized that their meeting was fateful. Jeriel considered their relationship similar to that of the main characters of a novel. She was almost broken. And the girl did not want to accept reality in any way, so with tears in her eyes she repeated that all this was not true. Calcion believed that the queen should find someone better than him, but she did not know anyone who could protect her and the princess after the crown prince ascended the throne. Moreover, the princess has feelings for a man, and the queen considered her a good option. The heroine listened to this conversation and understood that all this could not be left without her attention. Something had to be done. But she did not have time to say anything, because Calzon interrupted her and said that he did not want to marry just for profit. Meryl did not even hope to hear this from him, because such words are spoken by a man in love. Celine did not believe in this, because the duke could say more than that if only he did not marry the princess. The queen glanced into the girl's eyes and told her not to flatter herself too much, because all this would not last long. She asked the duke if he would go to the reception with this lady, and the man confirmed her guess. Meryl would like Selena not to get carried away with too high life, because it is not entirely safe. The girl was very panicked that she could be killed, but she was reassured that the queen did not go so far. But the question of who can do this remains open, because the queen cannot know, but thinks that there are many such people. The woman was about to leave because it was already late, and she stayed too long with the sick man, said that she would return when he felt better. The couple was left alone. Selena shared the idea that the queen might be hinting at something, and the man agreed with her guess. The heroine doubted that this lady was involved in this case, because she was too relaxed and behaved believably. But do not give up the idea that the queen interfered in the relationship between Ariel and Calcion all the time, and if that girl committed suicide, then the queen definitely had a hand in it. The duke recalled that Ariel had a wound that was too deep for her to inflict on her own. Although Soul is a newcomer to the secular world, she still does not think that her ex-fiancé was killed because someone did not like her. She doesn't mean to say that this case looks like a suicide, she just considered all the options. Since the girl wanted to look for clues, the duke suggested that she go to Ariel's room. Going there can lead to new ideas. The man stretched out his hand as a sign of invitation. After thinking for a while, she agreed to go to the room where the person was killed. Maybe they would end it faster. The heroes walked along the corridor. Selena noted that the atmosphere in this wing is much more pleasant. The duke said that his mother lived in the West Wing, so the influence of her taste is felt here. The girl liked the terrace they went out onto, and also liked the way the stairs led directly into the garden. It all looked quite romantic. According to the man, even at the time of construction, this place was invented for secret dates. Since the Duchess had fulfilled her duty by giving birth to an heir, her husband had nothing against this. The Duke himself did not focus on this, because this is how most aristocratic couples live. The couple reached the climax of the West Wing. The bright and colorful interior fascinated the girl. It reminded of the character of the Duke's mother. As Halcyon himself said, Ariel also lived here, but she did not change much in the room. They reached a door that led to a small room where the maids lived, where Lady Jeanette used to live. On that ill-fated day she was there, but said that she did not hear anything as she was fast asleep. Halcyon remembered and told what the dead girl looked like. The windows and door were locked, and the only way to enter the room was through the room where Jeanette slept. But that night, she also had her door locked, so the killer could not go there. And Jeanette must be the prime suspect, and the motive is that Ariel didn't fit the status of a man's family. But it would be a shame for Lady Jeanette to be implicated in a murder, so she would hardly do it. Halcyon had already said several times that, judging by the victim's wounds, the killer was a man who had held a knife in his hand more than once. Selina thought that this man must be very strong, and perhaps if the girl really wanted to hurt herself, she could do it herself. The girl shared her guess with the Duke that if this was true, then the person who brought her to such a state was a criminal. The man agreed with this idea. Any person with whom she simply communicated could be guilty. Even Halcyon himself, who had no idea before, could have been the culprit. When the man realized this once again in his head, he covered his face with his hand and drooped. He really felt guilty. After all, that day he thought only about what happened and potential criminals, and not about the dead Ariel. He wondered how the girl could come up with such an idea, but she said that it just occurred to her. One might think that she had a similar experience, but as the girl herself said, this is not entirely true. Any person can face something like this when he catches himself thinking that he is superfluous in this world. There was no specific person who made Selina feel so bad. Just strangers called her names and spread completely false rumors. This girl had to fight a lot at that point in her life, but in the end she won and became a famous actress. Halcyon listened attentively to Celine. Apparently something pricked in his heart, and he appealed to her not to tolerate anything in this world. She can just tell him everything, because she doesn't have to fight it on her own. The heroine laughed quietly. She was amused by the possible fact that if she told him everything, he could find these people and punish them. The Duke thought for a moment and then confirmed that if it worked, he would use it. Celine lowered her gaze at first, but then began to be indignant, because you can't kill people because they are bad. The man did not kill for such a reason, but faced a situation where such an outcome was inevitable due to the division of territory, and thanks to this, he can now clearly defend his interests. Therefore, he asked the lady not to tolerate injustice towards her, because in this world there was him for her. The next day, Selina received a letter from the same store. They had a mistake due to which they could not sew clothes and asked the girl to visit them again. She showed this letter to the Duke. He was outraged by such rudeness. Not only had they made a mistake, but they could not come themselves. Despite the fact that the girl paid them a sufficient amount, they sent her such a letter. The idea came to her that someone had a hand in this, and this letter means a declaration of war. Therefore, she thoroughly prepared for leaving for this store, thereby showing that she accepted the challenge. A little surprisingly, she met Lady Fionel near the store. Neither of these two expected such a meeting. Fionel noticed that the girl was somehow angry and asked what she was doing here, to which she snapped that she was not forbidden to come here. Looking at Celine, the lady seems that not very good people live here, and in general, she thinks this girl is crazy. She, in turn, as in previous meetings, argued with her in a mocking tone, not taking her seriously. But then she remembered that Fionel might know important information, so she took her out for a conversation in a slightly rude manner. And so that her maids would not follow them, the girl made it clear that if they disobeyed the order, nothing good awaited them. Selene slammed the girl into the wall and started talking about how she clearly knew something about Ariel's death. She asked again what she knew, because she knew a lot about this girl. Fionel has repeatedly threatened that Selena will face the same fate as her former fiancé, and Sewell has heard that she has suddenly committed suicide. Therefore, she asked if the girl knew about the possible reason for such an act. Some kind of threatening aura was blowing from her. But even that didn't make Fionel crack. Her defensive reaction kicked in, and she shouted that she didn't know anything. This time Selene let her go, but she thought to herself that in the future she would have to put pressure on her to find out everything she knew. Moving to a safe distance, Fional called out to the girl and said that she had been sincerely with her, unlike the other. But the heroine did not care about this, because this does not negate the fact that the Duke belongs to her. Fionel, after mentioning a sore topic for her, indignantly accused the girl of how terrible she was. She didn't want anything to connect them. She told her rival that she was actually a good person. In general, in her head, Selena agreed with her. Fionel is nice enough, but she behaves like this because she knows how many bad people there are among the nobles. This moment was a small warning for the girl that there are people much worse than Fionel herself. Gathering her thoughts, she and Juna finally went into the store. There they were already met by the administrator and apologized for having to call the girl so suddenly, and thanked her for coming. Selene saw that the girl standing in front of her was trembling all over for some reason. Something was wrong here. Suddenly, one of the visitors expressed his opinion that it was impossible to immediately strain the store employees. The manager explained that they could not come to the girl in person because they do not have enough employees, for which she apologizes. But the girl liked shopping yesterday, so she didn't mind visiting them again. The letter that fell into Selene's hands was also read by the Duke. He was angry because then the girl would not be able to pay enough attention to it. Then a whisper swept through the hall, clearly showing the condemnation of the girl from the people around her. The girl herself looked as if she did not hear these conversations. Her gaze was fixed on only one person. She did not even have to guess who had a hand in this matter. Rosaline herself sat before her eyes and calmly drank her tea. The heroine sat down at her table and carelessly greeted her, because they had not seen each other for a long time. Rosaline could not return her with the same sympathy. She did not like such flighty behavior. Translating into honest language, she doesn't have time to talk to commoners because she's a noblewoman and she needs to watch her speech. A stranger whispered in Rosaline's ear, hinting at Selene's stupidity and ill manners. And the whispers in the hall among the guests did not stop. All the people who were here considered the heroine very vulgar. Sol, meanwhile, reflected on the fact that it was because of this behavior of others that Ariel could commit suicide. Although she was a professional actress, it was still hard for her. She understood that there was no point in arguing with people, and she was at a disadvantage. Selene had nothing to oppose to Rosaline. She thought that the villainess in her place would attract the force to win this fight. And just as if by order, suddenly the Duke himself grew up behind the girl's back. He arrived at the right time. He had a murderous aura. Apparently he had heard something he shouldn't have heard. Neither the visitors in the hall, nor Rosaline, nor Selene, expected his arrival. Rumors spread throughout the room again. The man was worried that the girl went alone, so he also decided to come. He held the lady close to him and told the whole room that she was his guest, whom he himself had invited, and he wanted everyone present to understand this. He also noted that one person knows this information more than the rest, so he turned to Rosaline. But she said that the Duke had never introduced her as a guest, so she decided that Selene was his woman. A woman who goes beyond all permissible limits and warms the Duke's bed. Halcyon looked at the fact that this lady could only think of such a thing, but perhaps it was the influence of her father, who was constantly messing with his mistresses. He considers this to be the main reason why Rosaline can only think in this way. But the Duke is different from her father. He then addressed the crowd and said that he was serious about Selene, which was the reason why he had brought her. Therefore, he believes that other people should also take this lady seriously. After that, the couple left the store, and Rosaline herself was again left with nothing, just like last time. The heroes were riding in a carriage. Storm clouds were blowing around the man. It was obvious that he was angry, but Sol decided to make sure anyway. And in fact, there was a weighty reason for such a mood, because the Duke saw how they communicate with his man. In addition, he saw that the girl did not like the letter that arrived in the morning, and she was very nervous. Calzon asked Selene why she had gone if she knew what was going to happen, and indeed she was ready for something like this. The Duke reminded her of what he had said the day before so that she would not tolerate such an attitude. But the girl began to make excuses that she did not do it on purpose. Just the Duke appeared at the moment when she wanted to show everyone her strength. And she listened to all the insults because she wanted to join the social life, but the young man said that she did not need it. Then Celine reminded that she was here just for this, because the Duke wanted to find the criminal who killed Ariel. But the interlocutor did not agree because even if the perpetrator is not there, he is trying to find out the cause of what happened, and for this the girl does not need to go through the same thing as that victim. And since these two girls are different, Selena needs to find another way to join the social life. The heroine wanted to say something more about Ariel, but Calcion did not give her the answer, which closed the topic. She doesn't need to get close to these people. He doesn't want anyone else to get hurt because of him, so he asked the girl to be just herself. In her world, Celine always had to do what she was told, and it was terrible. But this heartless man sitting in front of her told her what she had always dreamed of hearing. And now the girl realized that as an actress, she was used to listening to criticism and dissatisfaction for no reason. She turned a blind eye to rudeness for too long, but it was also hard for her, like other people. The heroine had to pull herself together, wipe away all her tears, and show her indifference. But at that moment, the Duke hugged her. He thought that if he did this, she would calm down. After this, it was difficult for Selena to call herself an actress, because Calcion can see through her. He recalled that he is engaged in martial arts, so seeing through people is a familiar thing for him. The girl felt much better after such consolation, and she noted that the Duke was on a roll today and did a great job. Now no one will doubt how sincerely he treats Selena, and now there is no need to worry about his game. At that moment, he was very convincing, so much so that the actress herself believed in the truthfulness of his words. But Calcion said that those words were true. The girl was shocked by such a confession. It was hard to believe that because of the agreement he was even ready to get married. Selena didn't know that this man had such feelings for me, but the fact is that they are from different worlds, and the girl will still need to return. She can't leave everything she had there. Although she is pleased to hear such words, she already wanted to say something about the wedding, but she was not allowed. As soon as the Duke heard this word, he was stunned because he didn't understand what it was about. Then they both froze, but the girl continued to talk and explained that usually by serious attitude, people mean a wedding. The man's cheeks flushed after he realized that he had said in front of everyone that he was thinking of marrying Celine. And it turns out that in this way he confessed his feelings to the girl, but she hastened to calm him down because his acting skills improved. Basically, he did everything right and did a great job, but he can't shake the feeling of shame. The heroine hurried to find out what the man meant when he spoke about a serious attitude. Since they have been through a lot together, the girl simply cannot be an empty place for the Duke. Regardless of the outcome of the search for the killer, he will still support Salt and make sure she doesn't get hurt. The heroine was touched by such a speech. It is clear that he thought a lot about it, and therefore she thanked him for his concern. But most of all, he was determined to the girl's swordsmanship skills. The Duke's eyes lit up at the very idea. Calcion said that she had a great talent, and he could still teach her a lot, but she refused. She doesn't want learning to become his hobby, because she already feels like she can't let go of the gun. Soon, the heroine offered to go shopping with her, so that rumors spread that they were dating. She decided to start with Kranga. She really wanted to get into the pastry shop, which Juna constantly visits. When Selene showed up at the establishment with the Duke, a chic place immediately appeared for them. It was quite expected. Anyway, the difference in attitude was big. The absence of Juna could still have an effect. The girl turned to the waiter. She is not a fan of sweets, but asked him to bring them something popular. The man very willingly accepted the order. He asked to give them a little time and promised to bring the dish to her taste. And so that the guests did not sit just like that, they were brought treats. The employee said that they were sweet but not sugary. You can immediately see the reason for the popularity of this institution. The girl was very happy and already wanted to try everything. But the Duke stopped her and asked to be allowed to taste it first because the dish could be poisoned. Calcium has been prepared for this since childhood, so his body can withstand the effects of most poisons. You can't envy such a childhood, but the lady agreed anyway, and the brave hero, closing his eyes, took the first sample in his mouth. After a short amount of active jaw activity, the Duke's eyes widened. His face looked like the dish was poisoned, but he just said it was very sweet. After such an expression, people may not understand it correctly, but the man did not care. He only asked the girl not to eat it. She agreed, but then put a fork in his mouth with a new treat to try. It also turned out to be very sweet. Celine didn't want any surprises, so the Duke tried everything, but all the treats were terribly sweet. She was a little annoyed that she would not be able to eat anything, and they would have to leave, but then the waiter arrives with a long-awaited order. They have prepared a savory cake for the guests and ask them to try it as soon as possible. The girl really liked its appearance. She broke off a piece with a fork and brought it to Calcion's mouth to feed it, the other patrons just watching the scene with quiet shock. After tasting all the flavors of this dessert, the man concluded, "This is the best thing he has tasted." Then the heroine decided to try this creation too. The cake really turned out to be savory and delicate in taste. She looked up at the man and didn't understand why he was looking at her like that. Her eyes were wide and her cheeks were almost red. Then she looked at the fork and remembered that she had fed the Duke with it, and that was the reason for this behavior. The heroes were already in the mansion, where Selena tried on her new look while the designers were almost crying from this beauty. She was waiting for Calcion to say this. She wanted to know from him if she could kill all the socialites at the court reception. The heroes saw off the designers, who were about to leave back and wish them a good trip. For the first time in a long time, Sol was in a good mood after shopping, because it's nice when no one puts packs in the wheels. The girl liked some jewelry, but most of all, she was interested in the beautiful design of the store. When Calcion offered to buy, Selena showed him all the large assortment that they had already purchased. But this was not what he meant. He offered to buy the store. He really had a lot of money because he had to cover the embezzlement. Now the girl understands why they look at her like that when they hear the Duke's name. But in any case, she will not be able to run the store because she does not even have a name here. But it turns out that when Celine entered the castle, the Duke immediately made a document proving her identity. And while she is here, she can buy any building and simply register it in the name of Lenbird. Now Celine officially lives in this mansion. Although she did not plan to stay in this world for long, she used to perceive all this as a dream, but now she definitely sees and feels that she lives in the real world. As the Duke had said, when the girl returned to her world, perhaps this document would simply remain. It will not be impossible to get rid of it because the fact that it belonged to the Duke will not disappear anywhere. The couple had already gone to the castle, according to Calcion. The guests should arrive before the royal family, since in case of tardiness, they could even be accused of treason. After these words, the heroine has already begun to worry that they may be late, but the Duke does not want to arrive too early. She looked out of the window, wondering why there were so many carriages on the way. It reminded her of a battle. Both looked in the same direction. The girl looked at the emblems on the carriages that belonged to the families she already knew. What she saw told the girl that these families were fighting among themselves, who would arrive in what order. And this time the heroes will have to take part in this battle, but for now they can ride on an equal footing with everyone else. Suddenly the carriage in which they were traveling shook violently. Celine almost fell and was very frightened. Calcion was worried about her condition, so he approached her and asked if she was okay. He went outside, where Dion informed him that they had a problem with the carriage wheel, and the coachman was already inspecting everything. Soon the coachman himself came up to them, holding something in his hands. He said that a wire was wound around the wheel. Before leaving, he inspected the carriage but did not look under it because this is done at regular checks. Selena was glad at least that no one was hurt, although it was too late to call a new carriage. Then she went to the Duke to see if they could just use the horses. He said that this is not prohibited, especially since many aristocrats want to show their coolness in this way. Sol was waiting for such an answer. She offered them to ride horses. Then the Duke ordered Dion to prepare horses for them, and he immediately went on an errand. As an actress, Selena has a lot of experience in horseback riding, so even a dress will not hurt her. The horse had already been brought, and the girl jumped on this unusual transport with graceful dexterity. Dion was confused. He thought that the lady would keep his excellency company, and he forgot how he had seen her excellent swordsmanship skills. The girl said that she and the Duke would ride in front and let their subordinates follow them. Calcion noted that, apart from Miss Orlen, Celine was the first noble lady to arrive on horseback. This woman showed excellent results from an early age, for which she received the title of Countess. She did a lot on the battlefield. There is no one who can resist her spirit, and Celine was inspired by this image. The Duke said that this countess would be at the festival, though not for long because she did not like noisy events. It seemed that the heroine would not be interested in anything in this world, but she really wanted to get to know this person. She has adapted here. After such a realization, it will be harder for her to part with this place. The couple almost arrived. People were visible ahead. There was the main entrance, which they hurried to approach. The guards were trying to make sure that everyone was gathered and were about to close the gates. But one of the people saw the Duke of Lenbert approaching, so they waited patiently for them. They arrived, and the young man gave his hand to the lady to help her horse down. The Duke presented his name and his companion, with whom he had arrived, and they were greeted. As the couple walked forward, rumors spread among the crowd. The ladies discussed these heroes. According to Selena, the reaction of people is not bad at all. She liked that so far everything was going well. Lady Fional came up to them. She missed the Duke, and was worried that they would not come because something had happened to their carriage. She was very happy to see him and wanted him to give her a dance later, but Selena ruined her fantasies because this man came with her. She wished Fional good luck in finding a partner, and she hurried with the Duke to leave for a snack. Calcion praised the girl. She did a great job with this lady, and then she said that she could cope with anyone. Then suddenly, Lady Rosalind appeared beside them, greeted the Duke politely, and she heard them mention her name in conversation. Selena only said that she missed her. The lady made sure that the couple was doing well and was happy about it. The heroine pointed out to Rosalind that she again pretended not to know her name, although they communicated more than once. Then another girl appeared next to her, who greeted everyone present and was glad to see everyone. She introduced herself by the name Lirelle. She and the Duke had already met last year on Kingdom Day. Sol concluded that this girl must be in league with Rosaline since she appeared right at the moment when she began to attack her. Calcion and Lyrel were still standing and exchanging polites with each other. Selena noticed that something was wrong with this lady. It looked like she was gesturing to show her interest in this man. Apparently, the girl thinks that Sul will ignore her signs because she does not know them, but this is not true, so she gestured that this man belongs to her. Herzog introduced his companion and hopes that she will accompany him to subsequent events. Lyrel did not have to be explained twice. She understood everything. Her arrogance immediately disappeared somewhere. The heroine was inspired by her victory. Bring her at least 100 of such girls, and she will easily deal with them. In the years that followed, the Duke, like a robot on an automatic machine, repeated to the ladies the same thing, that he had a companion, and he hoped that they would be able to find a partner. Celine was already tired of so much attention, but Calcion reassured her that no one would come near them because it was time for the royal family. Finally, the guests were announced, the arrival of Her Majesty the King, with Her Highness the Princess. The two were simply smartly dressed. But not all members of the royal family came out, the Duke said, that the king has dementia, so it is difficult for him to attend such events. Now the girl understands more clearly why the queen is in a hurry to find a groom for her daughter in order to be in time before the king passes the throne to someone who knows whom. Lassen and the queen are in charge of state affairs. They divide all the responsibilities between them. The crown prince himself will not be able to take the throne because of his character he has made many enemies. The heroine was interested in whether the Duke was similar to his character, but the man said that they were different, because Lassen was not just a hot-tempered person, but also a very cruel person. Celine thought that perhaps the princess was also disliked because of this, and there was a possibility that she could sit on the throne after the prince. Lassen doesn't get along well with the queen, so he usually doesn't appear with her. Calcion told the girl that after the dance of the royal family, the banquet itself would begin, which meant that the celebration was nearing its end. The queen has attracted the attention of those present and announced the dance, but she is not feeling well, so the princess will dance instead. And since none of the men of the royal family are present today, they need a man who will do the honor of leading the princess in the dance. It doesn't take much intelligence to guess that the queen is now alluding to Calcion. Therefore, Selene decided to act quickly, grabbed the young man by the hand, and ran away. They had to have time to hide before the queen called him. The couple hid around some corner. The Duke would not be able to get away from the dance, and in that case, many would misunderstand him. The girl heard the music. Probably they are not looking for him, but just found someone else to dance. All this time, Calcion tried to call Celine, but she did not hear. The fact was that she was standing too close to the man. She apologized and wanted to move away, but her foot slipped, which made her press even harder against him. Both were terribly embarrassed by this situation. When applause was heard from the room, they decided to go back. On the way, the girl tried to come to her senses. She just had to get out of her mind what had happened between them. She thought that the Duke did not even think about it, but when she saw his red ears, she blushed even more. Inside, they were standing with a man talking. Selena had never met him before. It turned out to be Baron Zion. He could not let go of his late daughter Ariel. He wanted to say something to Calcion and asked him to give him some time, so the girl decided to leave them alone and go have a snack. The man asked that the lady not leave the hall, despite the fact that there are many guards here. The heroine stood not so far from them with a glass of wine in her hands and wondered what these two could talk about. She understood that perhaps this man was unpleasant to see her because she had taken the place of his daughter. Then a stranger pulled her out of her thoughts, who flew out of nowhere. He praised her choice in the drink and said that the girl had very good taste. A stream of information began to fly out of his mouth, which no one asked about. He told everything about alcohol, like a specialist. Because of Lady Jeanette's lessons, the girl could not even say an unnecessary rude word because she had to make herself look like a decent girl. This man still did not lag behind and made compliments. It was obvious that he was drunk enough to stop thinking what he was doing. He invited the lady to accompany him and go to an empty room where they would be all alone. This was the last straw of Selena's patience. She was ready to ignore all Jeanette's instructions. Therefore, in her easy and accessible way, she asked the young man to disappear from her sight. After that, he quickly left, but another man immediately appeared in his place who stuck like a fly, but the girl got rid of him. Next came another, but Sul was very adept at refusing all these clingers. Celine was fed up with the people who wouldn't let her pass, even though they knew she had come with Calcion. The lady standing next to her began to laugh and noted that the girl was very good at refusing everyone. She introduced herself as Viorel from the royal family. From the picture she saw, she could not help smiling and apologized for possible rudeness. Selena scanned the lady's appearance and decided that her family was like Fionel's, wondering if she was going to be challenged, so the girl also introduced herself in response. The girl already knew Selena, thanks to her spectacular appearance at the reception, and this method pleasantly impressed her. Viorel was quite positive towards the heroine and offered her a drink, since all bad memories go away with alcohol. The girls raised their glasses to the spectacular appearance, but the rest of them joyfully raised their glasses with them. A girl offered everyone a drink in honor of the horse, since her white horse named Sheena had finally given birth. Viorel congratulated the lucky woman, and everyone drank in unison to the strange horse Sina. Selena realized that these people love to drink, and they don't need a particularly important occasion, but it's better than the society she had to face. Therefore, she quickly joined the general atmosphere with a bottle in her hands to drink for full glasses. All this was, of course, fun, but these guys were very weak compared to the heroine, who, as it turned out, drank everyone too much. But she was glad that everything went without conflicts. She urgently needed to refresh herself in order to recover as soon as possible. She thought that Calcion would talk to Ariel's father for a long time, so she decided to go alone. Even though the Duke had asked her not to go out, she went out anyway and began to look for a bathroom. It was dark in the corridor, which made the atmosphere gloomy and terrifying, which made the girl's imagination run wild. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke to her. It was Fionel, who concluded that Selena was fearless to walk here alone. The heroine took the girl by the hair and dragged her towards the bathroom, as she needed to talk to her. Fiona wanted to ask what they wanted to talk to her about, but Selena interrupted her. In order to relieve herself and not spoil her image, she asked the girl to imagine that it was a flowing stream. Fionel was very infuriated by this behavior because she is not a servant who should accompany to the toilet. She was infuriated by the fact that the Duke had picked up such a person as Celine, said that there was nothing good in something that could bring trouble on herself. But at this point she fell silent. This is not the first time this has happened. The heroine decided to find out what Fionel knows if she is afraid to spill the beans. She had been warned by Rosaline, Fionel, and even the Queen herself that her life was in danger, but Fionel remained silent. This all seems strange because everyone connected to the Duke tells her that she may die. and the girl thinks that they actually know how Ariel died. Celine asked why Fionn said she would die if she thought Ariel's death was a suicide, and she didn't know why. Her face shows anxiety and fear. It is not known why she is afraid. Perhaps she is even threatened. Suddenly, Fionn spoke. She decided to be honest and said that she didn't care if Celine died or not. In fact, she is just worried about the Duke's reputation, but Celine said that he is able to take care of it himself. That's why Fionn doesn't like Celine, because she doesn't love the Duke as much as Fionn does, and she's afraid that because of this girl's greed, she might die. Ariel has already been talked about dying due to greed, but there was a slightly different meaning, perhaps a marriage of convenience. Fionn could not stand a long communication with Selena. She was by everything. She simply advised her to beware of men. After that, she did not want to continue the conversation anymore, and simply left the room in a quick step. Such advice made me think that the timid and quiet Ariel had a man. The heroine remembered Juna's words about the fact that the ex-bride had a lover. It turns out that Ariel got engaged to Calcion and found another man in the capital, which the first one did not care about, because this is how most aristocratic couples live. The lover would not have been the reason for the breakup of the marriage, so something worse had happened, because of which Mrs. Janet could not stand it and killed the girl. She wasn't stupid to commit such an obvious murder, so she could have collaborated with the killer or just stood by as the girl killed herself. Selena decided that in this case she should take a closer look at men, and now she knows in which direction to move in the investigation. It was time for the heroine to return to the party, but when she went out into the corridor, she realized that she was lost. She blamed Fionn for everything. Who knew that the girl would not find her way, so she ran away first. But our heroine is not frightened, because she survived the attack. At least she thought so exactly, until the moment when someone else's voice frightened her. It turned out to be a handsome young man, and he wondered if the lady who had noted his extraordinary beauty in her head was all right. She told him that she had lost her way when she was returning from the lavatory, and the person accompanying her had abruptly disappeared somewhere. The man realized that this girl was in this palace for the first time, and at first, everyone here was lost. He decided to accompany the lady, for which she was grateful. She thought that this man was not here for the reception, but just to work here. The young man laughed. In general, it could be called that, but today he was late for his work. He said that he would definitely drop by for the appointment. He just had to deal with his duties first. They reached the right place. The girl offered to come in together, but the guy needs to do something, but he will have time to return to the main event. After parting, the heroine thought about what kind of well-mannered man this man turned out to be, handsome and with a pleasant character. At the same moment, the Duke flew up to her, who began to find out where his companion had gone, because it was dangerous to walk alone. He was worried because he had seen her drag Fionn somewhere, and then she returned alone. He believed that he and Selene should have gone together. It seemed delusional to the girl, but she omitted this moment and said that she met a man in the corridor. She was prevented from finishing by the voice announcing the exit of the Crown Prince, who, by the way, has not yet come. The Duke asked once more who Sol had met in the hallway, and she pointed to the right man. Calcion followed the direction of the other hand, which was pointing in the direction of the prince. The prince in turn gave his speech. He said that soon they would become the most powerful kingdom in history, and they will destroy everyone who stands in their way. The prince spoke as if he had already become king. He raised his glass in the air, urging everyone to drink to the kingdom of Icklin, and everyone joyfully raised their glasses. Selene, who was watching such a performance, realized that all this was serious, and the prince had great support. The Duke clarified whether the girl had met the Crown Prince in the corridor. She confirmed and said that he was very kind. Calcion did not believe in these positive qualities, because the Crown Prince was completely different. He accused the servant of murder, and then dealt with him. The heroine believed that no matter how bad the character of this man was, it was impossible to deny the fact that he was handsome, like a prince on a white horse. In Calcion's opinion, she had talked too much about the prince's beauty, so he pointedly turned away, not hiding his resentment. The girl did not want to offend the Duke in any way, so she asked him not to be offended because he was much more handsome. At such a compliment, the Duke involuntarily smiled, and his cheeks turned red. Such a picture was very sweet for a girl. Then the heroine offered to dance, since a lot of eyes are drawn to them, and it would be necessary to show them my game. The young man pulled the girl to him by the waist to start dancing. These two made a pleasant impression on the people around. Selena likes the way she is led in the dance. The Duke has a natural talent for this, and he learns quickly. He does not miss a single detail, and shows care for his partner with every movement. This dance with the Duke was the most pleasant part of the celebration for our heroine, which she gladly informed her partner. The man was very pleased to hear these words. It was a great honor for him. Soon the music ended, and the partners bowed to each other, showing the end of the dance. The prince came down to them and applauded. He liked this wonderful dance and said that they looked good. The heroes bowed to a member of the royal family. As a sign of respect and greeting, the girl was a little surprised that he approached first. She introduced her name and recalled that they had met earlier in the corridor. She said that it was her first time in the palace and wanted to say something else, but she was interrupted by the prince, who recognized the girl and compared her to the mountain bird of Lenbird. He took someone else's woman's hand in his own and told him that he had heard rumors about a mountain bird that had charmed even the Duke himself with its beauty. The heroine did not know what to answer to this, since it was the first time she heard such a thing about herself. While still standing in the corridor, the young man could not get out of his head the thought of how cute this girl was. Since the girl did not know who he was then, the man offered to pretend that this was not the case. He was much kinder than Saul had assumed. After that, the prince turned to the Duke, saying that coming to the reception was a big step for him, because this time his castle was not attacked by any monster, and no avalanche had fallen. The crown prince asked why the Duke was silent all the time, since they had not seen each other for a long time, to which he reminded that he was not very eloquent. His Highness was familiar with this trait, so as a punishment for his silence, he wished that Selene would give him a dance. Halcyon could not contradict him or contradict him in any way, so he bowed, showing his agreement, if you can call it that. Layson called the lady to dance, and she accepted the invitation with great honor, thanks to which she would receive the title of the woman who danced with the crown prince. The man took someone else's hand and pulled his partner, hugging her waist, so they began to dance in front of everyone. This dance was observed by the Duke himself, who, according to the prince, took his sword out of its scabbard. Layson does not want to involve Selene in her relationship with the Duke, but he believes that this man is not suitable for her to live a peaceful and serene life. He agrees that the Duke is very calm, but the same could not be said about his entourage. After all, the fact that Selena became Halcyon's partner attracted a lot of attention. To turn the situation for the better for herself, the heroine expressed the opinion that there is much more hype around the prince on a white horse than around the Duke. Then the man noted that in the corridor, the girl looked at him differently, but then everything changed when she found out that he was the crown prince. From such agility, the heroine became restless, so she got out of it, saying that in her eyes Lawson always looks beautiful. The young man liked such flattery, and according to him, the bird sang more beautifully than he thought, and he was sorry that the Duke got it. But he reassured himself that it was not yet time to be upset, because they had not yet married. Therefore, he asked the lady herself if he hoped that he also had a chance to get her attention. The heroine was grateful for his words, but did not know what to answer, to which he offered her to simply confess her sympathy. Apparently, when Halcyon said that the prince was cruel, he meant sudden confessions of interest, despite the fact that they met for the first time today. Layson confessed that he was an impatient man, but if he hesitated, the girl would marry the Duke. The heroine noticed that then in the corridor the man behaved differently. Maybe he was so influenced by the fact that he found out whose companion she was. Or maybe he suspects them. But the whole situation is suddenly compensated by the Duke's new companion by her appearance. Apparently, the prince knows Halcyon very well, and it is not so easy to fool him, because he was sharply interested in where such a beautiful girl as she could come from, because he had never seen her before. The girl was amused that he had heard rumors about her but did not know who she was, to which he replied that he had learned her name only today. The heroine did not believe that the main suspect did not know anything about her, so he was still building an innocent face. Selena said that she is an ordinary commoner, and this is the first time she has been at such an event, and the man noted her talent because she has excellent manners and dancing abilities. Sol could not yet consider the prince a cruel person, because now he only looks cute and attractive. Perhaps he was testing the girl in this way, but it is not yet clear. Unfortunately for the guy, the melody is over, and he will have to return Selena back to his partner. He considered the Duke to be a real lucky man, because he had such a beautiful and talented lady. Halcyon remained silent, and the young man concluded that his acquaintance had not noticed her merits in all the time he had spent with the girl. After such a small squabble, he turned to Celine and thanked her for such a wonderful pastime. He hopes that they will have another opportunity to meet and kissed her hand goodbye. The young man left the couple and left the girl in turmoil. She already wanted to leave because she had a lot to tell the Duke. Soon, the heroes were riding in a carriage. The heroine was tired, after all. It was not easy in the secular world. She wanted to finish the investigation as soon as possible. She told her partner that while he was talking to Baron Zion, she managed to get information from Fional. To begin with, she clarified whether the Duke was aware that this girl was in love with him, although it was obvious, because she openly admitted it. Then she asked if he thought she was quite sincere with him, and now his face was uncertain. In fact, he just didn't think about it, because he didn't care. Fional's feelings for Halcyon are so strong that she is not embarrassed to visit a man whose fiancé has recently died. Unfortunately, these efforts were in vain, so she decided to change her strategy. This situation made the heroine laugh. Laughing, the girl still pulled herself together and shared the conclusion that since Fional sincerely loved the Duke, she would not want to harm him in any way. Therefore, she could not put her hand to the crime. The girl also added that Fional warned her to warn men. According to Celine's assumptions, a man was to blame for Ariel's death, but the Duke had no options for who it could be. Then the girl suggested that we think about the words of Lady Jeanette and Juna. These were threats and gossip, but the Duke had heard of them for the first time. Since these words belonged to people who disliked Ariel, Celine only trusts them halfway, so she needs a person who was friends with this girl. Saul suddenly wondered what the Duke and Zion had talked about at the reception, and the answer was not long in coming. They were talking about money. To the girl, this seemed strange, to put it mildly, because this man's daughter had died and he was worried about money. Halcyon explained that all sorts of bad rumors had begun to circulate about Baron Zion's family, and he had tried to convince him that none of this was true. Then this man asked for the return of all the purchased furniture so that in the future it would not harm the reputation of the Duke. Halcyon said that the Baron would arrive tomorrow. The heroine was outraged by Zion's lack of grief and concluded that all the people here were somehow strange. Therefore, the man suddenly remembered the person he knew and asked the girl to be more careful with the crown prince. Celine did not quite understand what she was overestimating the prince in, because as for his appearance, they had long decided that the Duke was more handsome than him. And since the crown prince is involved in the murder, she needs to get closer to him. Halcyon's face changed. There was a feeling that he was jealous. Such acting, even when they were alone, amused the girl. But in fact, the heroine was surprised that the prince was very nice to her, and she could think that he always behaves like this. The Duke's reaction betrayed the idea that the prince had gone mad, but if his behavior model was different, then this was a reason to think. Maybe he's just like that with women, or just with Selene, or maybe it's because she came with the Duke. And if he is really involved in the murder, then in this case you should be more careful since he is very strong. It suddenly seemed to the heroine that she saw Juna in the window, who in theory could not attend the festival due to the large amount of work in the mansion. Since she did come, then this is suspicious. She lied on purpose, and apparently she had some plans. Of course, Celine offered to follow her because her hunch told her that they would benefit in some way. Soon, the heroes disguised themselves as people who came to the festival, and the girl was very pleased with her work. In order not to seem strange, they should behave in such a way as not to attract unnecessary attention. For example, they may pretend to be a couple who wanted to hide in an alley because of raging hormones. Selena completely took all the initiative and kissed the man on the cheek, which shocked him. The actress played her game delightfully, pretending that she was never going to let her lover go. And Halcyon, in turn, somehow controlled his spirit in his hands. He kept telling himself that he needed to concentrate because they were on a mission. The man to whom Juna came was outraged by the behavior of the couple because there were other people around, but Juna wanted to get closer to the point as soon as possible because they both had little time. The interlocutor turned out to be a girl. She reported some kind of tea party at the Hayes family and said that invitations would be sent out later. All this time, Celine was carefully listening to someone else's conversation, and there the girl asked what Juna thought of the new mistress. Juna really dislikes Selena. She looks like Ariel. She does not understand anything in this life and wants to do everything in her own way. The maid thinks that this mistress has no weaknesses and suspects that she has seduced many men in her time. Saul jerked abruptly to the side of the interlocutor. She was angry that the maid dared to say such things about her. But Halcyon held her back in time and urged her to calm down, and then covered her head with his hood. The red-haired stranger said that the Duke of Lenbird had fallen under the spell of a new mistress, but Juna said that Mrs. Jet was not going to put up with it. Juna also told her friend that thanks to Selena's efforts, not so long ago, the butler and the maid were fired. The redhead did not know the Duke's partner at all, but she had already concluded that she was even more depraved than Ariel. And the fact that she is now looking only at the Duke is temporary, since the same story was with the former bride. Selena thought about the above words. Probably those girls wanted to say that if she was with Halcyon now, then in the future she would definitely have problems with men. Then they agreed on the place of the next meeting. They will see each other when the tea party begins, in a cosmetics store. When the girls left, Halcyon ordered his men standing on the rooftops to follow them. Now the heroes just need to wait, and Celine, in turn, promised to somehow talk to Juna. And since their secret mission was already over, the Duke decided that they could go home. But the girl did not agree with him. She wanted to stay at the festival, since it is now in full swing. Nevertheless, the man agreed, and then said that the wreath that they bought suits Selena very well. The heroine was very pleased, and she put the same wreath on the man's head because she reads that flowers also suit him. She loved the beauty and had had enough of walking around the festival because they needed to buy even more flowers. After a while, the couple returned to the mansion. Sol was very happy, and the Duke even agreed to go to the festival again sometime. The employees of the mansion were very surprised that the master visited him at all, and apparently to finish them off, the girl kissed the man in front of everyone. She said it was a sign of gratitude and went to the bath, and the Duke stood like a stone, but it was quite an expected reaction. Selena was already sitting in the bathroom with her maid and sharing with her her impressions of today's reception. And she also said that something interesting happened to her. She met with the crown prince. Juna was impressed by this news, and she wondered what the mistress thought of his appearance, once the maid had seen him from afar. Therefore, she was aware of the prince's beauty, especially since she had heard about it from Ariel, who had also seen him. After that meeting, something changed in her. She was so fascinated by him that she could not sleep normally. Therefore, the maid asked the girl to be careful so that the same thing would not happen to her. And then she changed her mind, saying that this did not mean that Selene should break off communication with the prince. But the heroine hastened to declare that only the Duke exists for her, and Juna is even jealous of how their relationship does not deteriorate. The girl with a dreamy smile began to praise the Duke. How cute he really was, although in front of others he behaved seriously. She remembered that at the festival he was very embarrassed by the kiss, so it was necessary to make sure that he got used to tactile contact. Therefore, after the bath, she went to the Duke's office and declared that they should kiss from morning to evening. Since Halcyon looks too shifted during the kiss, they need to rehearse the kiss on the cheek. It looks suspicious when a man is dying from a kiss, even though they sleep in the same bed every night. They needed to practice, and the Duke knew that very well, so he was willing to start now. The mentor decided to start with ordinary touches so that her exemplary student would get used to it. There was a rather romantic atmosphere around them, and for some reason, the girl could not concentrate. The man decided to take the initiative and reached for the girl's face, who in turn interrupted his action and offered to continue another time. The Duke pulled away, his cheeks already red, but despite his embarrassment, he asked if he had done the right thing. Selena was silent for a while. Her face was on fire, and her eyes seemed to be clouded, but she still managed to squeeze out the sounds and praised her partner. The next morning, Celine decided to go to Baron Zion, who had already arrived at the mansion. The girl went into the room and saw a man. He was watching how his furniture was being packed and was very worried about her condition. She had to pay homage to Ariel and solve the murder case, so she came to this man, who finally noticed her presence. The heroine said that he did not need to be in such a hurry, to which he promised that it would become quiet again as soon as the furniture was taken out. But she was not worried about herself, but about the guest. She wants him to be comfortable with her. Zion only turned away, and the girl explained the reason for her desire, because she had taken his daughter's place. But the man did not believe that he should suffer because his daughter had lost this place. In fact, the girl meant his feelings because they cannot be compensated in any way. Then Zion made it clear in a raised voice that he would not cry just because she resembled his daughter, or she could also share the property. Selena didn't expect such a reaction. She just thought that he would be sad because of Ariel's death. The man agreed that he could not do without sadness, because he could earn a lot more money if someone did not meddle in their own business. The heroine realized that she had said something stupid, so she decided to leave, and in the end, Zion offered to share her advice. It will be good if the girl knows what she is doing, because someone has already been burned due to ignorance. Celine came to the room where the Duke was sitting, looking at the invitation to a tea party, and by the way, it was also sent to her. She said she would watch it later, but was still surprised that she was invited. The man noticed that something was wrong with Selena's expression, so he wondered what could have happened to her. She explained that she had just seen Baron Zion and that she was somehow uncomfortable that his daughter had died and that he was talking only about money. Callian said that one should not expect more from an aristocrat, despite the fact that it was his child. Some families love their children very much, but for most, they are weapons to achieve goals. This world is very strange for a girl. She wondered if the Duke would be sad if she died. He wondered how he would react, how he would feel if he saw Selene dead. The girl was no longer waiting for an answer and asked not to worry. She had already realized that the young man would not be upset. The man denied it, and in general the girl will believe it if he pretends to be surprised. Calcion tried to find an answer. He was really furious when he learned about the attack and he was uncomfortable with what he saw. The answer was almost on the surface, but his thoughts were interrupted by Dion, who came to them with the news. He finished the investigation and found out which family Jun's maid belonged to. The heroine suffered to find out a more accurate answer, which she immediately received. This family belongs to the Earl of Hayes. Selene had heard the name before. It belonged to Laurel, the blue-haired girl who had caught her quarrel with Rosaline. She heard this name from Juna and found their invitation. All this must be connected and it needs to be checked. While Juna was putting Selene in order, she was thinking about what kind of tea party she should go to. She would go to any length, but the dates overlap. Since the maid knew all these families, the girl asked her for advice on whom to choose. After a little analysis, Juna chose the Hayes family, and this answer was expected for the heroine. But at the reception, Lady Hayes did not seem friendly to her, although, according to the servant, Ariel praised her. The maid almost insisted because there was a large mansion there, and it would be possible to make new acquaintances, so the girl decided that she would go there. Juna said that the mistress can turn to her with such questions because she has enough experience. Since Selene did not want to tarnish the Duke's reputation, she decided to ask Lady Jeanette for advice. She was embroidering something on Calcion's shirt, asked the girl to sit down and asked what advice was required of her. Selena said that she was invited to a tea party, and she needed to know what to be afraid of and how she needed to behave. The mentor explained that the development of tea drinking depends on the organizer, and if the girl is accompanied by the Duke, then she does not have to adapt to all this. And if she is driving alone, then you will have to adjust and somehow wedge in a little bit. For the girl, this sounded difficult because each court reception has its own atmosphere, and people are divided into companies. She may try to fit into the atmosphere, but people will probably find her strange, as was the case with Viorel. But Jeanette had already taught the girl the basics, and she had even attended a reception at the palace, so she just had to do the same things as before, and then there would be no problem. The girl remembered how she behaved at that reception and violated the most important part of her mentor's etiquette. And since Lady Jeanette did not know what was going on there, it meant that she did not have any nobles from that reception, which meant that she could not be someone's pawn. The heroine has a huge clue about Ariel's death, and there is no longer any reason to interrogate Jeanette. So she thanked her mentor and was about to leave, but the woman stopped her because she wanted to warn her about something. She said that at a tea party, people may seem friendly, but they can exchange gestures and signs that only they understand, and also gave advice that if the invitation is in a red envelope, it is better to come in a black one. According to her, Mr. Duke has never been to such events, and perhaps this time he will attend it. Now the girl understands where such charity for advice comes from. Lady Jeanette is simply obsessed with the Duke. Soon, Selina was prepared for a tea party. She was wearing just a delightful outfit that fit her properly, but it was uncomfortable to move in it. But there was nothing to be done, and the girl was already heading for the exit. The Duke was also ready to leave. He also had a white image, like his partner. At the last event, they had a bright outfit, so this time the girl decided to choose something less flashy. Suddenly, the heroine stopped and looked at the man. She wondered if he necessarily needed this cloak. After the answer she wanted, she asked him to borrow it to show off to others, and the Duke threw a piece of clothing over the other people's shoulders. She thanked her partner and said that this would be the main weapon for her because she needed to be ready for anything. And Calcion asked Celine not to overexert herself today. Such care was pleasant for her. She asked him not to cry and not to be bored without her, to which he asked her to stop joking and that she should go as soon as possible. But the heroine knows that he likes her jokes. She called him to draw attention to herself and gently kissed him on the cheek. She said that this kiss was for him goodbye, and he would get another one before going to bed. She got into her carriage and promised that she would return soon, after which she left safely. And he remained standing and blushing. Maybe it was a good practice for him, but still unexpected. The heroine visits a place without Calcion for the first time, and therefore is a little worried. But she will do everything to return to her world as soon as possible. The Duke was a little worried about the girl because it was the first time she was going so far without him, but she had half of his escort with her. But he was still worried that the carriage would not return, and the servant standing next to him said that they could go to the training ground. Selina arrived at her destination. She did not expect that all the good places would be taken. Apparently, she should have arrived early. She went to the table where Lirel and Rosaline were sitting and thanked the lady for the invitation. If the invitation had indicated the time of the meeting, then she had been here for a long time, so she apologized for being late. Rosalind said that it was even pleasant to look at Selina today because Lirel was worried that she had only white clothes in her wardrobe. Today, the Duke took care of her outfit. The girl has too many of them because her man buys them at every opportunity. Usually he insists that she dress up only for him, but today he made an exception. When Calcion saw her in this dress, he said that she was incredibly beautiful and put a cloak on her so as not to attract unnecessary attention. And Selina apologizes if she looks too flashy, but Lirel calms her down because they understand everything. Once Sol greeted her, she decided to sit down and went to the table where two girls she did not know were sitting. As soon as she mentioned the Duke, everyone who ridiculed her tucked their tails, which irritated the girl very much. But she still made a relaxed and friendly look and greeted those present. The heroine raised her head. The place is very beautiful. It's just a pity that people here do nothing but insult each other. Some time passed. Selina was already quite bored. She had already made sure that Lirel was connected with Rosaline, which meant that she could leave here altogether, since there was nothing else to do. Suddenly, Miss Lirel asked for the attention of the guests to inform her that she and Rosalind Nada were going away to betray something important. No one objected if they had to leave for a while, and the guests asked them to return as soon as possible. When the girls left, the atmosphere around suddenly became somewhat awkward, but it was expected for Selina and even funny. Suddenly, a girl sitting at the same table spoke to her. She wanted to ask something, but she was not sure that she could do such a thing. Having made up her mind, she asked. It seemed to her that Selina's dress was from La Mer, but the girl did not give a clear answer since she had too many outfits. According to the interlocutor, the designer's name is engraved on the inside of the sleeve or ribbon and asked to take a look. After receiving consent, the girl looked. The dress was really from La Mer, so beautiful and expensive. The interlocutor noticed that Selina's ribbon was incorrectly attached, and the heroine understood why Juna behaved strangely in the morning. She thanked for this remark and wanted to go to the bathroom, so the girl told her how to get there. Selina noticed that the behavior of those around her had changed dramatically, perhaps because Rosaline had left. But she doesn't have to treat them warmly at all because they are polite to her just because she can become a duchess. The girl found a bell to ring, but suddenly she heard a very loud voice as if someone was swearing. It wasn't quite clear what she was talking about, but Sewell decided to go where the screams were coming from. As she opened the door, she heard the girl inside screaming that her dress was stained and the maid was about to clean it. It was Laurel, who was already indignant at the expense of some girl who, in her opinion, was much worse than her in all respects, and she would not get rid of her arrogance even after 1,000 years. The heroine suggested that the girl was swearing at Rosaline. It seemed a little strange to her because they are the closest friends. She continued her reimbursements, saying that Rosaline had first declared that she would be the crown princess, and now she suddenly wanted to become a duchess. She didn't understand why she needed to meet the crown prince, or what she wanted at all. Suddenly, Selina decided to make her presence known. She heard an interesting conversation and thinks that Rosaline would appreciate it if she told her everything. Lyrel did not expect such a turn of events. At first she was frightened, but then she decided to find out what Selene was doing here. According to her, she came to the restroom by accident and witnessed such a conversation that interested her. She's not in a hurry, so she'd like to discuss it, as she thought she and Rosaline were close. Although she condemns her friend behind her back, she still believes that this case shouldn't concern Selene. To which the heroine said that she heard Lyrel compare Rosaline to a bat. For sure she would be unpleasant when she found out about it. Lyrel realized that she was being manipulated and threatened, so she agreed to discuss everything, but Sewell said that they had been discussing it a long time ago. In fact, Laurel and Rosaline are close because their families share common interests. Sometimes they cooperate and sometimes they compete. For this period of time, they are cooperating, and everything is quite simple in their relationship. The girl admitted that she did not want to be cold towards Selina at all. There are just things that a person must do. It was Rosaline who had ordered everyone to attack Saul at the party, and now she had invited her to a tea party without the Duke, so that everyone could mock her without fear. As Laurel said, she wanted to get to know Selene better, and she didn't need to bother her, but she didn't know why Rosaline was doing this. The heroine asked for advice on how to make friends with Rosaline, because if they become close friends, they will be able to spend their leisure time together. Lyrel was slow to answer, and Selene almost decided that she had lied about wanting to get closer. The girl could not allow Selena to tell Rosaline everything she had heard earlier, so she had to come up with something. She said that their families have a common business in the field of jewelry, so they communicate. She wouldn't be with Rosaline all the time. Once her family agreed with Lenbird, they could separate themselves. The heroine advised that if the Hayes family want to cooperate with Lenbird, then they should make friends with her because she can ask for the Duke's favor for her friend. Therefore, Lyrel was recommended to write a letter to the Duke because if it was passed on by Selene, it would not be noticed. But Lady Hayes does not really believe in this. She does not think that the Duke will agree to do such a thing for her. Still, she was handed a piece of paper and a pen to start writing right away, and reminded that she should mention that she had befriended Selene and had heard a lot about the Duke. In the end, she began to write and thought that if she could come to an agreement with the Duke, then it would not be beneficial to Rosaline. She folded the paper in half and was worried that it might cause a scandal, so she could not allow the letter to fall into the hands of the Duke. As soon as she thought about it, her hand was immediately grabbed tightly, and the letter was taken away. Selina thanked and promised to take care of it, because it would be proof of their friendship. The heroine was satisfied with her work. Thanks to this letter, Lyrel automatically became her slave. Now she needed to find Rosaline with the crown prince. It did not take long to look for them. As soon as the girl noticed them, she hid behind a tree and began to watch. The prince held the lady by the shoulders. He talked to her about how she had shown him her weak side, for which she apologized. Selina thought that there was something between these two, since the man also said something about feelings. I also mentioned something about her good behavior, as well as the girl's pink cheeks also lead to certain thoughts. They hugged. Selina did not know how to comment on this, but concluded that there was not just an affair between them, and Rosaline was in love with him. The girl had been long awaited, so she had to go back, and they said goodbye. Then the prince turned to Selene, wondering how much longer the Duke of Lenbird's bird would hide. The heroine did not quite understand how she was noticed at such a distance, but still greeted her. According to La Seine, he and Roselyne have known each other since childhood, and he treats her like a younger sister. Selina noted that they have a very warm relationship, with which the prince agreed. They always help each other. But the heroine still thinks that he is lying. She remembered that once Roselyne almost became a crown princess, but it did not seem that she sympathized with him. Lassen had come here for a while to see Roselyne, and he had not expected to see Selene. Their meeting was an unusual coincidence, and he decided to call such a large number of coincidences fate. But the girl believes that this is not fate, but the banal desire of one person to meet another. But the man insisted on his own. He believed that she should be happy and agree with him, to which she reminded that she was the Duke's woman. And as far as she knew, the prince did not like the Duke, and Lassine praised the girl for such intelligence. Mushna admitted that he understands in his head that he should not get close to her, but at the sight of her, his heart repeats the opposite. The heroine was shocked and at first did not know what to say. She had the feeling that the prince really had his eye on her. After a couple of moments, she tried to convey to him the idea that all this was wrong. But Lassen didn't see anything wrong with wanting to get closer to her, because she was beautiful and attractive. The girl said that she needed to restrain herself a little, because she was dating the Duke. But the prince does not ask for more, although he has the opinion that the Duke is so obsessed with her that she is not allowed to look at another man. In addition, she is not married to him, and he did not make any promises about his future. Suddenly, someone hugged the girl from behind and pulled her a little to him. It was Kalkion, who said that he would soon make his promise. An hour ago, when the man had seen the girl off, he had listed in his head all the knights he had sent with the girl, and their number should have reassured anyone. Then a servant approached him, who reminded him that they had to go to the parade ground, and the man reminded himself one last time that Selene was well protected. But in training, he still couldn't stop worrying and put too much energy. Dion tried to reassure him that this was just a training fight, but the Duke was still in his thoughts. His friend suggested that he try again, but not so violently, and the Duke's head was occupied with thoughts about Selene, which was now in danger. He hurried to leave the parade ground and explained his act by saying that something could happen to Selene, because everything happened suddenly. Dion did not understand what such a thing could happen at Laurel's tea party, and then the Duke thought about it. But then terrible pictures of hypothetical scenarios were drawn in his head, which prompted him to act. And as strange as it all was, Calcion's premonition did not fail, because he appeared with Selene just in time. The man told the prince that he was cautious about his relationship with Selene, but if she was worried about it, then he was ready to make a promise. He apologized for interrupting their conversation altogether, but he is very possessive of his people. This is not news to the prince, but he still considers it unfair, because this girl is not his property. And this means that she can talk freely with Lassen and has every right to follow the call of her heart. Calcion understood all this perfectly well, but he refused to lower his hand from the girl, and all because he simply did not want to. After a brief exchange between them, the prince advised the Duke to be careful, because if he pressed too hard, the little bird might fly away. But if anything, Layson has a cage large enough to unleash it, to which Calcion simply thanked him for the advice, while not hiding his displeasure. After that, the prince said that there was enough talk for today, and asked permission to say goodbye to the lady, but he was refused. The young man was not very upset about this, but he apologized to Selene for being so rude that he would not say goodbye to her. But he promised to continue their conversation at their next meeting. Selena could hardly agree, because she was squeezed into an embrace even harder. This amused the young man. The crown prince had already left, and the girl reminded the Duke that he could already let her go. She asked why he had arrived so suddenly, to which he replied that he was just passing by. The girl praised him for his excellent performance, and to find out the prince's intentions, she needed to dig deeper, but today the Duke appeared at the wrong time. Apparently, the man did not like such a remark, and he even suggested that the girl was going to go over to the side of the prince. The heroine decided that her partner was simply stupid, because she did not need to go to the other side, since the Duke was the only one who could return her to his world. The young man got a little stupefied. He completely forgot about their contract, for which the girl had already managed to scold him. As she said, she was fine, and Calcion didn't have to come, because the prince wouldn't hurt her in any way. He had many opportunities to kill her, and it didn't happen, but there must still be a reason why he is getting closer to her. Or maybe he wasn't pretending to be in love, but had been serious all along. The Duke's jaw dropped from the suggestion. But if this was true, then he and the prince could triple the duel, and then Calcion would have the opportunity to kill him legally. Celine confirmed that Rosaline was in control of Lirel, and that something was going on between her and the prince, but the Duke said that this guy definitely didn't care about her. And since this man loves no one but himself, the Duke asked Celine not to believe his ravings, and not to think that he was in love with her, because it was impossible. The heroine is convinced that Calcion hates the crown prince, since he reacts so harshly when it comes to him. Then she decided to go to tea with the royal family, and the Duke asked to accompany the girl. The fact is that she was invited alone, but now they are all already sitting at the table, and this person has not yet left. The girls thought that these two looked very nice together, but still Viorel did not expect to see the Duke here as well. Selena explained that he was just interested in the atmosphere at the tea party, and he would be leaving soon. To get support and a positive response from him, she pinched his leg so that no one could see, but the man did not care, and he continued to stay where he was. But Viorel was still glad to see them. She had been looking forward to their meeting since the last time. People gathered around the heroine. They had never seen someone who drank so much. Everyone admired her talent. Many people then wanted to chat with her longer, and Selena was pleased that at least somewhere she was welcome. She was the goddess Dionysus herself for them, and the girl was glad that she was able to leave a good impression of herself. Therefore, she urged everyone to start the celebration and drink the first glass to their health. The girl ordered everyone to drink to the bottom and warned that she was watching everyone, but suddenly her glass was pulled out of her hand. It was Calcion, and he had no qualms about taking and drinking her drink while the others stood there in a little shock. He explained his act by the fact that they have many enemies, and there is a high probability of poisoning, especially at the first tea party. Therefore, he warned that he would drink for the girl, since he was immune to poisons. Selena was about to say that he shouldn't have done it, but the crowd behind her screamed, touched by such romanticism. The girls said that they understood everything and would drink with him, and then they offered to drink to the Duke's boundless love. The heroine was quite satisfied with this situation. All these people are so good-natured and take her for a person, and not just a mistress of the Duke. Some time passed. Viorel was already quite drunk. She assumed that the Duke was bored with them since he drank so well. The man confirmed her assumption, and despite the fact that, according to her, he should not have come to such a gathering, it is still honorable for them that he joined them. And then she concluded that this man was very worried about Lady Selena and asked him for confirmation of her words. And he confirmed, saying that he would not leave her alone where there were men and alcohol. Viorel was touched. She wondered how this lady had managed to melt his cold heart, since he was ready to go even where he did not want to. The young man smirked and gave a rather interesting answer. It was all about her beauty. Viorel wasn't sure why Selena was so surprised, because she hears it every day, but she said she just didn't expect him to say it in public. The heroine hurried away, saying that she needed to go to the bathroom, while the others admired her displacement. She was really embarrassed. She did not understand when Calcion managed to become such a good actor. The man said that he would see her off. He did not care that she went to the toilet, because anything could happen, like the last time she met the prince. The girl said that he had nowhere to come from here, and if he appeared, he would not be able to do anything. But the young man was adamant. Then a woman who had heard the whole conversation came up to them. She advised the Duke not to violate the lady's personal boundaries. The savior greeted Celine and introduced herself as the Duchess of Orléans. The girl was glad that they finally met. The Duke remarked that she did not have a weapon with her, to which she replied that it should not be in plain sight at a social event, and that her skills should not be underestimated. She asked if she could accompany Selene, who was only glad that the Duke had mentioned her outstanding skills. So Saul dragged the Duchess by the hand and asked Calzone to wait where he was, not to look out. Left alone with her, she said that she had never seen him like this before, to which the woman replied that he just cherished her. Truth be told, the Duchess didn't expect to see Selene like this. She thought the Duke's girlfriend would be a poisonous lady, but it turned out she was embarrassed, like a little girl. Noticing the violent reaction, she hastened to explain that she did not want to offend, but just made a compliment. Then the heroine realized that she was not malicious, but just very straightforward. The Duchess decided last time that Selena was an interesting person, and now she was convinced of this by talking to her personally. But the heroine is already used to being hated even before personal acquaintance, and at the first meeting they begin to try to prepare. The interlocutor said that high society is such that they do not care who you are. They will continue to repeat the opposite about you. According to her, Celine is still a very young chick in high society, but is no longer sure of herself, or she is looking for someone better than the Duke. The girl was taken aback, and the Duchess laughed at her reaction. She apologized, saying that she must have been misunderstood. What she really wanted to say was that she really liked Selena as a person, and no matter what kind of man she was dating, she would still like to see her. According to her, in the Lenbird family, men often change women. This applies to both the present and the past. And despite the fact that they are in love now, if you look at the Duke's past, it is difficult to be sure that this love will last for long. The Duchess really likes Selene, so she would not want this girl to be heartbroken. The girl thought that they wanted to tell her that she deserved more. This confirms the sympathy of the interlocutor, although she is apparently cold towards Calcyon. The Duchess justified herself by saying that she liked him too, and people like these two were rare. The heroine realized that Calcyon is perceived here as a flighty person, so everyone believes that she is a temporary passion for him. Then she came up with a brilliant idea, so today she will have to make a fuss at the tea party. Meanwhile, Calcyon was already burning with fire from the long absence of the girls. Viral tried to reassure him that they were probably just talking. The Duke unexpectedly asks if there is a guarantee that the restroom is a safe place. The girl was surprised. Not receiving an answer immediately, the man was a little furious that he was not told right away. They were not sure about the safety of this place. Viral marveled at this reaction, convinced that the Duke was not one of the patient people. It was true. Suddenly, Selene finally came up to them. The Duke and Viral did not expect to see her so suddenly, but still pretended that everything was fine. At the next remarks, the heroine called the Duke as dear, thereby leading the others into a stupor. She asked her dear to bring her a new glass, as she did not want to finish the alcohol that she already had. And by agreement, he must do everything she says, so he calmly carries out her order, which is not hidden from Viral's eyes. When there was a new glass in front of the girl, she suddenly changed her mind and just wanted water. Viral had the impression that Celine was training the Duke because he calmly followed all her instructions. The man, at her request, added 3 ice cubes to the water and asked if she needed anything else, but she asked him to just sit with her. The girl put her head on the young man's shoulder and told him about her discovery today, that everyone thinks that their relationship is temporary, and she wondered how far her road was willing to go for her, so she asked him himself. In response, she heard that this man was ready to go as far as possible. Then, the girl asked if her Duke could get her a star, but he had to find a way to get to it first, and this answer satisfied her. Therefore, for today, her request was that a flower be plucked from the tree. It was as if Selena was asking for a dream that she would need to give clouds later, and then the star was not far away. Therefore, Calcyon stood up and silently walked towards the tree while Celine silently watched him. The guests also watched this romantic story and looked at each other with surprised looks. When he reached the tree, the man reached for the flower that Sul was pointing at in one leap. He tore off the future gift and deftly landed on the ground with impressive grace. Then he walked over to Celine and carefully tucked his gift behind her ear while the girl watched in silence. And after the delivery, he looked at her affectionately and, smiling, said that she would have to wait for the clouds. Then the heroine smiled back and stretched out her hands to the Duke to hug him and promised that she would really wait. The next day, Selena was already sitting with Juna, and there was a pile of invitations on the table in front of her. The maid said that it would take a long time to pick up dresses for all the receptions, but the girl really wanted to get some rest. As a result, Celine went to train with the Duke and asked Juna to organize all the invitations. The maid wished her a good time, and when the door slammed shut, she began furiously sorting through all the envelopes. She did not know how to find the right one among all the letters, because she could not even read who the sender was. But she knew that she needed to find an envelope with the symbol of the Hayes family, and soon she found it. With this letter, she would be able to get more money from Laurel, but before she could finish, Selena appeared in the room. The heroine finally caught her maid red-handed and demanded that she give her this letter.